Chapter 28:55. Yi Shiwen sensed that there were also powerful auras coming from other places. They should be the masters of other heavenly races, or even the awakened Tao tools. There was not much time left for him. The heavenly races were united and would naturally not let him do as he pleased. Previously, when the Allied forces broke through the Tianqi dynasty, they first sealed the perception of the entire world before they succeeded. His high profile would naturally attract the attention of the heavenly races. There was a reason why he chose the Central Dynasty. As far as he knew, the Central Heavenly Emperor did not leave behind any Tao tools. This was also known from the Central Crown Prince. According to the records in the ancient books, the Central Heavenly Emperor did not seem to be dead, so the Tao tools naturally followed him. It was even worse than the Tianqi dynasty with the half-broken Tianqi Emperor sword. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for Yi Shiwen to suppress a dynasty with the protection of Tao tools with his current cultivation. However, Yi Shiwen was not afraid of any of them. He was afraid that the heavenly races would unite and appear together. That would be a great trouble. If he could not complete his plan, he might be killed instead. "What else do you want to say?" the Central Heavenly King said coldly. He directly attacked Yi Shiwen with the Central Emperor body. His original body was not enough to resist the Tao tools, but it was another matter if he transformed into the Central Emperor body. There was a great mystery in this secret technique. It could even summon the scattered power of the Central Heavenly Emperor back. The stronger one was, the more power he could summon back, and naturally, the stronger the power he could exert. That was why he could resist the Tao tools. For so many years, although the Central Dynasty did not have Tao tools, they also had such a secret technique that could resist the Tao tools temporarily and maintain the inheritance. The Central Heavenly King was already at the peak of the quasi-emperor realm. Naturally, he could use this secret technique to an unprecedented level. It was really tyrannical and terrifying. "If you don't get out of my way, you will die." Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly opened, and a shocking light burst out. 6 paths suppression. Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch, and endless 6 paths of reincarnation appeared. The world seemed to enter the rhythm of 6 paths of reincarnation, and it suppressed the Central Heavenly King on the spot. "You are courting death?" the old Central Heavenly King roared. "I want to see how many more Emperor origins you have to sustain such consumption." He clearly knew that Yi Shiwen had been forced to take the risk to plunder the treasury of the Central Dynasty. Obviously, Yi Shiwen didn't have many Emperor source in his possession. Therefore, he was very sure that Yi Shiwen would be defeated even without the help of the other Celestial Dynasty as long as he persisted. Using his Central Monarch body, he grew bigger and bigger to resist the 6 paths reincarnation. Bang! There was a shocking collision, and the Central Emperor's body was shaking. Just when everyone thought that it was going to be another shocking attack on Zhu Hang, Yi Shiwen's 6 paths of reincarnation evolved with 6 shocking powers. With the support of the power of time, it directly shattered the Central Emperor's body. The 6 paths of reincarnation was to send everything in the world into reincarnation. Naturally, it also involved some laws related to time. Combining the power of time with the 6 paths of reincarnation fist made the 6 paths of reincarnation even more powerful. This was a level that even the Azura Demon King could not achieve. When the Demon King of 6 paths of reincarnation created the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, he did not obtain the time robe. Naturally, he did not have the opportunity to evolve it to this level. However, this did not mean that the Demon King of 6 paths was inferior to Yi Shiwen. After all, this was a secret technique that he created, and it was the most suitable path for himself and his Tao. No matter how strong the later generations were, they could not go further than him on this path. Just because Yi Shiwen did not have a demon body, he could not go further than the Azura Demon King. It was just that after obtaining the support of the time robe, Yi Shiwen had embarked on another path. Perhaps he could open up his own path, his own Tao, his own powerful martial arts, which was different from the Azura Demon King's 6 paths of reincarnation fist. It was his own, the strongest path. This was something that he had just comprehended after entering the Quasi-Emperor realm. After all, a Quasi-Emperor was close to that realm, unlike a divine king, so it was possible for him to pry into the secrets within. With this attack, Yi Shiwen evolved into a whole new realm and erupted with an even stronger power. It actually shattered the Central Emperor's body, which was barely able to resist a Tao tool on the spot. How is this possible? The old Central Heavenly King turned pale with fright and retreated repeatedly. The space in front of him had completely collapsed into a huge piece of chaos, and he could not get close at all. Yi Shiwen's attack had actually penetrated the ancient formation left behind by the Central Heavenly Emperor. It had truly reached the point where it could threaten the entire world and even kill him. The old Central Heavenly King had originally prepared himself for this. How terrifying was the revival of 2 Tao tools! Even the corpse of an emperor would be killed. Moreover, his own cultivation had not reached the level of the Mahasvara, so it was a completely different concept. It was very likely that he would not be a match for Yi Shiwen. He did not expect that just 1 Tao tool would be so terrifying. The hidden strength of the old Central Heavenly King was shocking. However, Yi Shiwen did not stop at all. All of a sudden, he pounced forward again and bombarded the old Central Heavenly King. The power of the newly evolved 6 paths of reincarnation fist was shocking and terrifying. With the support of the time robe, its power was even more powerful to an unbelievable extent. The old Central Heavenly King was originally on par with Yi Shiwen. However, he was defeated in an instant and fell into a disadvantageous position. In that instant it seemed like an eternity. It was too strenuous for him to resist. Although the method of the Central Heavenly King was unparalleled in the world and rarely met a worthy opponent, under the influence of the power of time, every time he attacked, he would consume far more energy than he had originally expected. Time was the origin of everything, and it could truly affect everything. Yi Shiwen's attack seemed to happen in an instant, but it also seemed like an eternity. When Yi Shiwen attacked, it was unknown how terrifying it was. Buzz! Yi Shiwen blasted another attack, and the entire world was roaring violently. He grabbed the stone sword and slashed it at the old Central Heavenly King. Endless stone energy was waving, and the world seemed to have completely turned into a stone energy kingdom. All the attacks and techniques of the old Central Heavenly King were buried and turned into nothingness. Boom! Yi Shiwen's attack smashed all the defenses of the old Central Heavenly King. He directly rushed to the front of the old Central Heavenly King and blasted his fist into the body of the old Central Heavenly King. Puff! The old Central Heavenly King spat out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body was sent flying. He couldn't withstand this attack and was blasted away on the spot. Many powerhouses saw this scene with their magical technique. They only saw a huge hole appearing in the chest of the old Central Heavenly King. Yi Shiwen's punch almost penetrated his entire body. One could imagine how terrifying Yi Shiwen was. The power of this punch was comparable to a Tao weapon, and no one could withstand its sharpness. This was what it meant to be powerful. Just as Yi Shiwen was about to go one step further and kill the old Central Heavenly King, a huge figure suddenly appeared in the void. It opened its bloody mouth and swallowed the entire sky, wanting to swallow Yi Shiwen directly. Boom! Its huge mouth bit down, and the entire sky collapsed. It couldn't withstand it at all, and everything turned into chaos. Another top-notch Quasi-Emperor had made a move. Many people were shocked, and they immediately reacted. The next moment, Yi Shiwen's figure appeared in the distance. The demon wings behind him were constantly flapping. He looked at the distance with a cold expression. He saw a huge vicious beast. Its body was covered with red flames. It was tall, like a small mountain. It looked ferocious. It also had a pair of flaming wings on its body. As it flapped, the world seemed to have fallen into a sea of fire. Could it be? I remember now. The old central heavenly king used to raise a real spirit ferocious beast that was formed from the real fire of the sun explosive beast. However, legend has it that the sun explosive beast was smashed into pieces to protect the old central heavenly king. I didn't expect to see it again now. It seems that the old central heavenly king must have used a secret technique to revive it. Its strength back then wasn't any weaker than the old central heavenly king. With two powerful experts at the peak of the quasi-emperor level joining forces, Yi Shiwen will be in trouble. Someone exclaimed. There haven't been many sun explosive beasts since ancient times. Real fire of the sun is very rare, not to mention that most of them have been taken away by the Golden Crow race. I didn't expect to see one alive here. I'm afraid that Yi Shiwen won't be able to suppress it this time. Two people. So, you were waiting for me here. No wonder you're so fearless. However, it's useless. You won't be a match for me even if you two come at me together. Yi Shiwen roared. He knew very well that the person in front of him wasn't the fire dragon god, nor was it the great freedom heaven. Although they were both at the peak of the quasi-emperor level, the difference in strength between them was like heaven and earth. The great freedom heaven's strength would have been similar if he had been at the peak of the quasi-emperor level countless years ago. However, the great freedom heaven had already transcended to another realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape unscathed after killing his way into the Allied forces' headquarters. The old central heavenly king would have been annihilated in the Allied forces' headquarters in a matter of minutes if he had been in his place. Human, don't be too arrogant. Even your ancestor wouldn't have dared to be so arrogant. Let alone you. That sun-explosive flaming beast roared. It seemed as if it had been provoked by Yi Shiwen's words. It spouted a huge flame, and it seemed as if the entire world had been split into two halves by a sharp sword. The sky collapsed and turned into primal chaos. However, something even more surprising happened. Yi Shiwen didn't dodge. Instead, he grabbed the flame with his hand. The flame sprayed into Yi Shiwen's hand, and was cleanly absorbed on the spot. The world-shaking flame couldn't hurt Yi Shiwen in the slightest. Chapter 2856. All of them were extinguished by Yi Shiwen's backhand. These flames that could melt stars could not burn Yi Shiwen's body at all. They were all absorbed by Yi Shiwen, as if Yi Shiwen was an insulator. The flames could not burn him at all. All kinds of strange phenomena burst out from Yi Shiwen's body. These were the results of him evolving the great Tao to the extreme. They became a part of his body and integrated with him. The sun-explosive flame beast only has this level of flames? It's still not enough. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. Compared to the flames he encountered during the heaven's retribution, it was indeed not that terrifying. Although it was the sun real fire, the flames he encountered during the heaven's retribution were all rare and strange flames in the world. They were not weaker than the sun real fire, and some were even stronger. Arrogant! The old central heavenly king was instantly enraged. The central emperor body on his body swept out crazily. He did not give Yi Shiwen a chance to speak at all. He directly pounced towards Yi Shiwen. His big hand suddenly grabbed the sky, turned into a huge fist, and blasted towards Yi Shiwen. Endless light formed on the time robe around Yi Shiwen's body. The burning emperor source turned into amazing power, and instantly protected Yi Shiwen. Rumble! This blow directly hit 3 inches in front of Yi Shiwen, but it could not go any further, as if it was blocked by a terrifying power. Swoosh! There was another amazing light, and a pair of hands rushed out from the endless aftermath of the explosion. As if it was tearing the sky, it instantly broke through the chaos, and this terrifying explosion was completely torn apart. Swish! Yi Shiwen instantly rushed out, directly breaking through the sky, as if his whole body had flashed in front of the old central heavenly king. 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch, and the power of heaven and earth was twisted into his hand on the spot. This punch was simply invincible. The old central heavenly king did not even have time to react before he was hit by the punch. Bang! The old central heavenly king screamed and was sent flying. In an instant, countless flowers of the great path bloomed and countless laws were burning. The Daos of both sides were colliding. It was terrifying. Yi Shiwen's punch almost surpassed everyone's understanding of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. It shattered the sky and bombarded the space into fragments. At this moment, that sun-explosive flaming beast had just arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. Its entire body was burning with boundless flames. It truly displayed its astonishing strength as a peak quasi-emperor. It turned into a huge sun in the sky and ruthlessly fell down. However, Yi Shiwen didn't back down at all. He remained expressionless and didn't continue to chase after the old central heavenly king. Instead, he pulled out the stone sword and swung it towards the solar explosive flame beast. Countless stone chi danced in the air like ribbons in the sky, directly colliding with the true sun fire. Boom! When the two of them collided, a terrifying and everlasting light erupted in that instant. This stalemate only lasted for a moment. Yi Shiwen once again slashed down with his sword. One sword followed by another. He instantly broke through the defense of the oceanic town and directly beheaded the sun-explosive flaming beast's body. Puff! Stone chi appeared in the body of the solar explosive flame beast, which was as bright as the sun, and petrified its body. This kind of power was simply unimaginable and terrifying. Before the old central heavenly king could react, a huge crack appeared in the body of the solar explosive flame beast. Ah! The solar explosive flame beast continued to roar and retreat. Its golden blood was like a group of burning flames, constantly spraying towards the heavens and the earth. They had just started fighting, but it had already been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. Such a thing made it panic. He had never expected that as a peak quasi-emperor, he would be no match for Yi Shiwen in this fight. The power that Yi Shiwen had gained after using the time robe was truly tyrannical to the extent that many people were afraid of him. The many experts who were watching from afar using a secret technique almost fainted. What kind of joke was this? They had only exchanged 2 blows, and he had already severely injured 2 people. Could it be that Yi Shiwen really wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with Freedom Heaven and the others and become invincible? How is this possible? He can use the time robe to this extent. Could it be that he has already understood all the abilities of the time robe? Many people had doubts in their hearts. If it were them, even if they had obtained an ownerless Dao tool like the time robe, it would be impossible for them to use it as they wished within a short period of time. This was because their understanding of the time robe was rather limited. Moreover, Yi Shiwen had obtained the time robe not long ago. Even if he was born with the time robe, it should not be possible for him to understand the time robe to this extent in a mere few thousand years. However, they did not know that there was a mysterious space inside Yi Shiwen's body that was continuously deducing for him. Not only many martial arts, but even the secrets of the time robe were also constantly being analyzed. Therefore, although he had obtained the time robe not many years ago, his understanding of the time robe was as if he had obtained it for tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. Of course, it also consumed a considerable amount of Emperor's origin. Otherwise, if the time robe could be activated with just Emperor's origin, those Emperor monarchs wouldn't be so careful to awaken the artifact's spirit. Wouldn't they be able to do it by themselves? After obtaining the Emperor source, Yi Shiwen's strength in all aspects had undergone earth-shaking improvements. It was far from just an improvement in strength. His understanding and control of martial arts and Dao tools were also completely different. If Yi Shiwen could return to the time when he had continuously resisted 2 great Dao tools, it would not be so strenuous for him. In fact, he might even be able to resist them. Go. Kill him! At this time, the Central World's quasi-emperors finally could not bear it anymore. They could not watch Yi Shiwen act arrogantly here. They had to delay for time. Delay him. As long as we delay him, once the experts of the other dynasties arrive, it will be the time of his death. He must die today. Many quasi-emperors roared. One after another, the ancient magic arrays were activated, and they bombarded towards Yi Shiwen with astonishing energy. These various exquisite magic arrays had been passed down by the Central Heavenly King in the past. They possessed boundless might. In fact, they could even pose a threat to a genuine emperor. You want to stop me? Yi Shiwen sneered and casually broke the energy bombarding him from the many formations. These boundless energy torrents boiled over and were no match for Yi Shiwen at all. They could not even break the defense of the time robe that he was wearing. Boom, boom, boom. Yi Shiwen casually scattered heaven and earth. These energies could not withstand a single blow from him. A quasi-emperor rushed in front of him. His attacks were boundless, but Yi Shiwen did not move at all. A smug and sinister smile appeared on his face. He had thought that he could successfully take down Yi Shiwen. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would pierce through his entire body with a simple sword strike? His attacks also turned into ashes in an instant. They did not pose the slightest threat to Yi Shiwen. This sword strike directly pierced through his physical body and destroyed his spirit. He could not be any more dead. A powerful quasi-emperor was a terrifying existence that could call the wind and summon the rain in the outside world. However, he was no match for Yi Shiwen at this time. He had originally been able to contend against a terrifying late-stage quasi-emperor expert. Moreover, he had the support of the time robe. His combat power had already undergone a tremendous change. The instant death of this quasi-emperor shocked the experts of the celestial race. However, they were only stunned for a moment. Then, they randomly pounced on Yi Shiwen in an even more ferocious manner. Not only were there quasi-emperors, but there were also divine kings. There was a very large number of them. It was not without reason that the celestial race could contend against the myriad realms by themselves. Apart from the fact that they did not have a Tao weapon, the central great world was almost comparable to an emperor-emperor's inheritance in other aspects. In fact, it was even more profound than an emperor-emperor's inheritance. Yi Shiwen could kill a divine king with a casual strike. There was no difference even if it was a quasi-emperor. They could not stop Yi Shiwen at all. Ah, Yi Shiwen, damn it! The old central heavenly king roared continuously. He spat out a mouthful of old shui. To him, this was a great humiliation. He could only watch helplessly as Yi Shiwen massacred his people wantonly. There was nothing he could do. He had already been severely injured by Yi Shiwen earlier. At this moment, he knew very well what kind of monster he had provoked. At this moment, what he truly regretted was not sending people to kill Yi Shiwen. What he truly regretted was not sending people to kill Yi Shiwen. What he truly regretted was not sending people to kill Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen was very strong and even had 2 Tao weapons, if he also had a Tao weapon, then everything would be completely different. He might even be able to hold on until the other experts of the celestial race arrived and kill Yi Shiwen together with multiple Tao weapons. However, what he did not know was that if the central great world had a Tao weapon, Yi Shiwen would not have chosen it. It will be your turn soon. These divine kings, quasi-emperors, and more gods joined in. They flew up one after another, either riding on magic treasures or controlling spirit designs. They charged towards Yi Shiwen in an attempt to buy time for the old central heavenly king. However, it couldn't stop Yi Shiwen from carving out a bloody path with his own strength. In an instant, he had already carved out a bloody path towards the old central heavenly king. He had cleared out an area, and blood was constantly dripping from the long sword in his hand. Chapter 2857. blood continued to drip down. Every time he waved his hand, it was unknown how many formations would be broken, and how many experts of the Tian clan would perish in his hands. Yi Shiwen was like the strongest Azura in the world. He was expressionless, and he just kept on killing. This was the most terrifying thing about him. The Tian clan's continuous attacks did not affect him in the slightest. Yi Shiwen, you will die a horrible death, the old Central Heavenly King roared, and his whole body trembled. The Central Emperor's body condensed on his body, and an attack pierced towards Yi Shiwen. Insignificant skill, 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch. Countless time power condensed all over his body at this moment, and then he punched the Central Emperor's body. Boom! The Central Emperor's body was smashed by Yi Shiwen on the spot. It couldn't stop Yi Shiwen at all. He was already at a disadvantage in the confrontation with Yi Shiwen, not to mention that he was injured now. He was no match for Yi Shiwen at all. Roar! The old Central Heavenly King was forced to the edge, and he directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. He roared, burned his life source, and rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Bang! The old Central Heavenly King didn't have the slightest chance to attack at all. He was slapped away by Yi Shiwen, and then he was directly punched in the air. Bang! The blood of the old Central Heavenly King instantly gushed out. Golden blood tumbled, and dripped down, instantly turning into a vast ocean. Ah! The old Central Heavenly King was furious, and he roared unwillingly. Why did such a terrifying existence appear in the Alliance army? Humph, die! Yi Shiwen sneered, and directly trampled down. His big foot grew bigger and bigger in the void, like a pillar supporting the sky, and directly stomped down towards the old Central Heavenly King. Bang! A tragic roar came, and the old Central Heavenly King was smashed by Yi Shiwen on the spot. His body was torn apart, and countless artifacts instantly collapsed. The old Central Heavenly King reassembled his body in the distance, and he constantly roared. He fought and retreated, and was beaten like a dog by Yi Shiwen. He couldn't fight back at all. However, it didn't take long before he was grabbed by Yi Shiwen again, and ripped apart. The power of the time robe was too violent. Seeing this scene, even the top experts of the various races high up in the mountains could not help but feel an intense chill on their back. They did not dare to imagine this at all. It's like the resurrection of an ancient overlord. These quasi-emperors were all dumbfounded and felt a chill run from the soles of their feet to their heads. This time, the old Central Heavenly King once again reorganized himself in the distance. However, it was clearly incomparable to before. The speed of his reorganization was much slower. Although it was still completed in an instant, the people present were not ordinary people. They could easily tell that the old Central Heavenly King's reorganization speed was much slower. Yi Shiwen, you are too insolent. At this time, the sun-exploding flaming beast's mouth was spewing raging flames like an ocean. It rushed towards Yi Shiwen and didn't give him any chance to take a breather. Get lost! Yi Shiwen roared. He grabbed the sword in the stone and slashed it. Yi Shiwen's sword chi formed a huge sea of sword radiance that annihilated the sun-exploding flaming beast's sea of flames. Then, his original body actually chased after the old Central Heavenly King who had escaped. Although the old Central Heavenly King wanted to stop Yi Shiwen, it was already very obvious that this was just wishful thinking. It was simply impossible. It was already not easy for them to escape with their lives. He had been severely injured by Yi Shiwen several times, and his body had been torn apart and crushed several times. Every time he reorganized his body, it consumed an endless amount of life force and energy. It was impossible for him to reorganize his body continuously. Not far away, Yi Shiwen stood bathed in blood. His entire body was emitting a golden glow, and he looked like an invincible demon god that stood under the starry sky. He was practically invincible. However, The person who could stop him was currently not in the grand central world. He could not help but let out a sorrowful howl. Was Yi Shiwen really going to get his way today? Yi Shiwen looked at the old central heavenly king, who had reorganized his body. Yi Shiwen was not surprised. A quasi-emperor was difficult to kill. Yi Shiwen might be able to kill an ordinary quasi-emperor with one strike, but a peak quasi-emperor like him, who was almost halfway to the legendary realm, would not be able to seriously injure him with one strike. Buzz! Yi Shiwen took a step forward, and a huge crack instantly appeared on his body. He charged toward the old central heavenly king, and the battle started again. The entire central world was groaning and trembling. They were unable to resist Yi Shiwen. Even the old central heavenly king and the sun, exploding flaming beast, had been injured by Yi Shiwen. The blood of the two top experts had already splattered across the sky. What other choice did they have? Yi Shiwen pursued them relentlessly, not giving them any chance to catch their breath. All Yi Shiwen did was chase after the old central heavenly king and attack him relentlessly. Now that he had the absolute advantage, the old central heavenly king could not even organize his defense. Or rather, he did not have the time or the ability to organize his defense. One could imagine how pathetic he was right now. This was a shocking scene. One must know that this was a peak-level quasi-emperor. He was considered a top-notch existence in the absence of the emperor. Apart from a group of unimaginably tyrannical peerless powerhouses like the Great Freedom Heaven, he was no match for Yi Shiwen. So, he had started to flee for his life. This scene was very strange, no matter how one looked at it. In fact, they would find it very normal if they were to look at it from the other side. Yi Shiwen had only cultivated for a few years, yet he was already able to suppress a peak quasi-emperor. Even if he was only able to do so with the help of a Dao weapon, this was already more than enough and far exceeded everyone's expectations. Is he going to defy the natural order? Is he really going to attain Dao? Not necessarily. However, in this era where the Emperor Lord has disappeared, I'm afraid he will rule the world for a very, very long time. You should know that he is only a few thousand years old. He will be even stronger in the future, and with the help of a Dao weapon, no one will be able to defeat him in the future. Since ancient times, there had been many invincible experts in the world. However, it was still rare to see someone so young and able to reach such a level in such a short time. Bang! The old central heavenly king was blasted away again. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Ordinary people could not imagine how terrifying Yi Shiwen's punch was. At this moment, the old central heavenly king could not even maintain his physical body. His physical body was torn apart and shattered in all directions. The fight between Yi Shiwen and the old central heavenly king was too fast. No one knew how many times they had exchanged a casual blow, and they directly entered the depths of the world, above the galaxy. Only the sun explosive flaming beast was chasing frantically behind him. It wanted to catch up and bring the old central heavenly king back. However, it was of no use at all. The speed at which Yi Shiwen sent the old central heavenly king flying was even faster than the old central heavenly king was chasing him. This filled his heart with shock. He had encountered many masters and many invincible experts. However, it was simply unimaginable that someone with such strength and speed would have such speed. This time, the old central heavenly king still wanted to reassemble his physical body. However, he saw a shocking blood-colored sword light splashing out from Yi Shiwen's hand. It pierced through the sky and erupted with a shocking Dao-seeking way, splitting the space apart. Puff! This sword instantly killed the spirit of the old central heavenly king that was scattered between heaven and earth, not giving him a chance to be reborn. Without the guidance of the spirit, his physical body could not continue to reassemble. It could only scatter in all directions like a meteor. At this moment, Yi Shiwen opened his futon hand and grabbed at the old central heavenly king fiercely. These pieces of flesh and blood were all grabbed by Yi Shiwen. None of them escaped. All of a sudden, they all became food for the demon flag and were devoured completely. At this time, the sun explosive beast finally caught up. However, when it saw the scene before it, its soul was almost scared out of its body. It was almost scared to death. The old central heavenly king actually died in the hands of Yi Shiwen. Although it was surprised and expected, it still couldn't help but be scared to death when it really happened. It immediately turned around and wanted to escape into the distance. It didn't dare to stay at all. However, it couldn't catch up with Yi Shiwen's speed. Want to leave? Stay here. Yi Shiwen's big hand transformed into a huge layer of clouds and shrouded the entire universe. Everything was enveloped by it. A huge smashing sound resounded. It was like a rock piercing through the sky or a raging wave hitting the shore. The entire universe was completely smashed into two halves. Countless primal chaos swept out and turned this place into a vacuum zone. Under this attack, the sun-explosive flame beast let out a scream and ended up like the old central heavenly king. Its physical body collapsed on the spot. Its physical body turned into countless flames and swept in all directions. At this moment, it truly understood how the old central heavenly king felt. However, it was too late. Bang! 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 After being severely injured, the sun-explosive flame beast didn't even have the strength to escape. It was directly smashed by Yi Shiwen more than a dozen times in the air. It was unknown how much life source was consumed every time he was blown up and reborn. Finally, he was blown up high in the sky by Yi Shiwen for the last time. His primordial spirit couldn't be reborn anymore. It vanished into thin air and turned into nothingness. Chapter 2858. Quasi-emperors were difficult to kill. This was a well-known fact in the world, especially peak quasi-emperors. Their primordial spirits were indestructible and very difficult to kill. It wouldn't be easy even for an ordinary god to completely annihilate them. He had encountered many gods who had come back to life before he had reached the Tao realm. Even a wisp of their primordial spirit could leave behind a huge disaster for hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years. And now, in front of everyone, two invincible figures were killed by Yi Shiwen. This shock made many people open their mouths wide, unable to close them for a long time. They did not know what to say. Especially those quasi-emperors, who thought that they were invincible and had already achieved success, felt a strong threat at this moment. Especially those heavenly race quasi-emperors, they were even more shocked and angry. They were angry because Yi Shiwen had dared to kill his way into an ancient dynasty. However, they were shocked because he had succeeded. Yi Shiwen had become one of the most dangerous people in everyone's eyes by relying on the time robe. He would become one of the biggest obstacles for the heavenly race to unify the world. Yi Shiwen, who was very strong and had a Tao tool, had become a huge threat. He was even more of a threat than those emperors' inheritances. The real threat of the emperors' inheritances was their huge number of people, countless experts, and deep heritage. But Yi Shiwen was different. He was the biggest threat alone. The secret alliance that he had established was a joke to the heavenly race. It would not affect his own strength much if it was destroyed. This meant that attacking the secret alliance would not be of much use to them. They could not achieve the effect of destroying Yi Shiwen's combat power. As long as Yi Shiwen escaped alone, it would not make much difference whether the secret alliance was destroyed or not. This kind of lonely person was too troublesome. If the secret alliance was not destroyed, they would not be able to stand it. But if they destroyed it, it would not be of much use. It was really a headache. Most importantly, through this battle, they had already understood that Yi Shiwen had passed the time when they could easily suppress him. They hadn't taken Yi Shiwen seriously in the past. They had thought that he was just a powerful junior of the younger generation. He wouldn't pose much of a threat in a battle of this level. However, they knew that they were wrong now. Yi Shiwen's strength was enough to pose a huge threat to them. It was a pity that he hadn't noticed Yi Shiwen's threat. And now, he had no control over many things. This is truly heaven-defying. He is only a few thousand years old. In the future, he will be unrivaled for a very, very long time. He's still so young. Who knows, he might really be able to advance into the supremacy stage in the future. Everyone was shocked. Yi Shiwen's strength had exceeded everyone's expectations. Under the cold, starry sky, it was desolate. The two once invincible figures had died tragically in Yi Shiwen's hands, and it had also frightened the Tian clan army that was rushing out endlessly. They had originally risked their lives to protect the two pillars and buy time for them, but now the old central heavenly king had died tragically, and they had been scared witless by Yi Shiwen. Most importantly, they felt that all their efforts were useless. Immediately, they scattered like birds and beasts. Although there were still some people who were indignant, it was useless. When a tree falls, monkeys scatter. This was the general trend. Their individual strength was no different from a mantis trying to stop a chariot. It was completely useless. At the moment, everyone also understood how frightening a Tao weapon was. The Emperor Lord's inheritance was an Emperor Lord's inheritance, and it could be passed down for countless years without being destroyed. A large part of the reason was the Tao weapon. Originally, many people did not have a clear understanding of how powerful a Tao weapon could be. It was just like how most people's understanding of nuclear weapons was limited to how powerful they were. However, they did not know exactly how powerful they were. Now, after this battle, everyone completely understood that Yi Shiwen had relied on a Tao weapon to easily flatten an ancient dynasty that had been passed down for countless years. Before the other heavenly clans could react, Yi Shiwen had acted at lightning speed and accomplished what many people thought was impossible. A powerful Tao weapon could really change the outcome of a race war. It was even more powerful than everyone had imagined. While they were still immersed in this shock, Yi Shiwen had already made his move. He had once again descended upon the grand central world. Cries and shouts could be heard everywhere. Yi Shiwen was like a demon descending upon the world and suppressing everything. They had originally thought that they would never be attacked and that their homeland would be absolutely safe. However, it had now been attacked by Yi Shiwen. The pillars of the grand central heavenly king and the solar explosive flame beast had actually been slain. Their spiritual pillar had collapsed, and their faith had also collapsed. Unless another figure like the prime heavenly emperor appeared, they would only reach the level of the former heavenly king even if they cultivated to their peak. However, they had still died and their spiritual world had collapsed. Yi Shiwen charged straight into the depths of the grand central world's core. Small worlds appeared before his eyes one after another. No secret was a secret in front of his eye of salvation. These small worlds were actually treasure troves. Each one of them was a massive treasure trove. Who knew how much wealth the grand central world contained? This was different from the last time he had killed his way into the heavenly awakened world. Back then, the Allied forces had followed him, and most of the benefits had fallen into the hands of the Allied forces. This time, there was no one to fight over them. Of course, it was impossible for the grand central world to store all of its wealth here. Everyone understood the principle of a crafty rabbit having 3 burrows. The wealth here was probably less than 1/3 of the grand central world's total wealth. Even so, when multiplied by the grand central world's countless years of accumulation, it was still a massive amount of wealth that almost blinded Yi Shiwen. Compared to these veteran legacies that had accumulated wealth for who knew how many years, he was still a pauper. A portion of this wealth was the emperor origin that he needed, as well as some extremely precious materials. Among these materials were the divine materials that Yi Shiwen needed to refine a Tao artifact. A Tao artifact had to be able to bear the martial path of an Emperor Lord. An Emperor Lord's martial path was already superior to all living beings in the world. This was something that no one could imagine. Ordinary materials were completely useless. Only some rare divine materials were possible. Every divine material required an Emperor Lord's legacy and an Emperor Lord's time to search for it. Sometimes, even after searching for a long time, one would still not be able to find a single divine material. It could be said that these divine materials were extremely precious. Many divine materials were even in the depths of the chaos. It was very normal for one to search for one divine material in the chaos for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. However, in the Grand Central World, he had actually seen two divine materials that could be used to refine Tao artifacts. An exceptional divine material known as divine phoenix gold was locked in a small world. It emitted a frightening immortal glow and vaguely took on a form. It was actually an immortal phoenix that wanted to spread its wings and soar. This was an extremely rare divine material. It was said that the phoenix ancestor had been born with a large piece of divine phoenix gold in her arms. Later on, the phoenix ancestor had used this piece of divine phoenix gold as a foundation to forge the legendary phoenix robe, which had accompanied her in conquering the world. Of course, this piece of divine phoenix gold was far from the size of the star that the phoenix ancestor had been born with. Even so, it was still as large as a mountain. Even though this piece of divine phoenix gold was only the size of a fist, it was still priceless. There was simply no market for it. Who else but an Emperor Lord would have the ability to obtain such a divine material? It should be known that the divine phoenix gold had a spiritual nature. There was a legend that the phoenix ancestor had developed a spiritual intelligence from the divine phoenix gold and transformed into a type of connate lifeform. Of course, this legend was only a legend. However, there was no doubt that the divine phoenix gold and the Phoenix clan had a deep relationship. According to some legends, divine phoenix gold was actually a divine material that nurtured supreme lifeforms. It possessed extremely powerful strength that was no weaker than a peak quasi-emperor. People who were not at the level of an Emperor Lord would not be able to obtain it even if they chased after it for countless years. This piece of divine phoenix gold had clearly been captured when the central heavenly emperor had still been alive. Later on, the central great world clearly did not have the ability to refine this piece of divine phoenix gold. Thus, it had been imprisoned since a long time ago. It was extremely rare. Apart from divine phoenix gold, Yi Shiwen also saw a world seed that had yet to grow. This kind of world seed was the embryonic form of a world. It could be said to be a top-notch material for a divine nation. If a god used a world seed as a divine nation while condensing a divine nation, then a true divine nation could possibly grow to an unimaginable level in the future. Most importantly, if this world seed grew, one would have the opportunity to observe the formation of a world. This was an extremely rare opportunity. Even an Emperor Lord would not have such an opportunity. This was because many of the worlds that existed today had been naturally formed countless years ago. That era was even longer than the era when the heavenly race had ruled the world. Apart from some ancient gods who were born at birth, it was impossible for others to have such an opportunity. As a result, the strength of those ancient gods was much more tyrannical than the later gods. However, in the previous battles, most of the ancient gods had died long ago. A world seed that had yet to grow was even rarer than a divine material. If one could watch it grow, it would be extremely beneficial for one to comprehend the Tao. The birth of a world required the condensation of the world and the reconstruction of the nomological laws. During this process, the various nomological laws and the origin of the Great Path were completely unguarded and could be seen clearly. This was an extremely rare fortuitous encounter for an Emperor Lord. Chapter 2859. This was a bit like the fruit of the way, but compared to the fruit of the way it was somewhat different. The fruit of the way had evolved countless laws of the Great Path, but in terms of professionalism, the seed of the world was still superior. In particular, some laws related to the origin of the Great Path, such as time and space, would be completely manifested as the seed of the world grew. It was even these laws that constructed one world after another. There was no more intuitive experience than this. In the entire Central World's treasure trove, the most precious items were the world seed and the divine phoenix gold. The other items were undoubtedly inferior. Moreover, at Yi Shiwen's level, many of the divine materials and elixirs that had previously been extremely precious were practically useless to him now. However, even though he did not need them, the Secret Alliance needed them. With these items to fill up the Secret Alliance's treasure trove, the Secret Alliance's strength would also increase by a level within a short period of time. The long-term impact of this treasure trove would be even more unimaginable. It could be said that this treasure trove could save the Secret Alliance tens of millions of years of hard work. Naturally, Yi Shiwen valued the Emperor origins the most. There were indeed many Emperor origins in the Central Great World. They were several times more than the Emperor origins that Yi Shiwen had obtained from the Demon Monarch's treasure trove. It could be said that the number of Emperor origins in Yi Shiwen's possession had been greatly enriched. As long as he had enough Emperor origins, Yi Shiwen would not be afraid of any enemy. Yi Shiwen sighed. Indeed, a horse would not get fat without grass at night, and a man would not get rich without a windfall. However, this sigh only lasted for a short period of time. Yi Shiwen started to move. He used the great mystique of moving mountains and filling up seas to frantically plunder the wealth of the entire Central Great World. Given Yi Shiwen's current strength, he could grab the stars and the moon with a stretch of his hand. He could also grab an immeasurable amount of wealth. Even so, it would be very difficult for him to empty this place in a short period of time. The wealth of the Central Great World was simply frightening. Many of the Central World's experts gritted their teeth as they stared at Yi Shiwen. They hoped that he would not move everything away and leave quickly. At the same time, they also hoped that he would continue moving. That way, he would end up bumping into the reinforcements from the other heavenly clans. A great battle would erupt and they would kill him. That way, the Central World would be able to calm down a little. This battle was too stifling. They had been completely beaten by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had taken advantage of the fact that there was no Dao tool guarding the place, and directly rushed in. On the other hand, they believed that Yi Shiwen would never dare to be so rampant if they had Dao tools in their hands. Yi Shiwen quickly realized that no matter how fast he moved, he would not be able to clear out the entire Central World's treasury in time. Hence, he decided to go all out and flung out his demon summoning banner. Instantly, countless demon kings surged out. The endless demon race army also joined in the looting. This undoubtedly increased the speed of the looting. It was happening at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yi Shiwen heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he charged towards the two earth-shattering divine materials. He took the lead and charged into the world where the divine phoenix gold was imprisoned. Then, he shattered the formation that imprisoned the divine phoenix gold. Beat! The divine phoenix gold let out a long cry. Almost instantly, it transformed into an immortal phoenix and flew away. It flapped its wings and flew high up, filling the sky with multicolored divine light. The divine phoenix gold displayed astonishing strength right from the start. Now that it was no longer restrained, it tore the sky apart and tried to break free from the void to escape. "You want to leave? Stay here," Yi Shiwen shouted. Then, he stretched out his hand and grabbed at the divine phoenix gold. The divine phoenix gold seemed to be sentient. It flew into a rage and shot out beams of immortal light at Yi Shiwen's hand. Even an ordinary quasi-emperor would not be able to withstand such an attack. However, Yi Shiwen did not care. Instead, he grabbed at the divine phoenix gold. Rumble! A series of violent explosions occurred, and the immortal phoenix transformed from the divine phoenix gold was caught in Yi Shiwen's hand. No matter how much it struggled, it was useless. It was no match for Yi Shiwen at all. It kept erupting with astonishing divine radiance and explosions, but it couldn't hurt Yi Shiwen, who was protected by the time robe. After a while, a huge seal character appeared on the immortal phoenix gold. Then, the immortal phoenix gold was completely sealed. Yi Shiwen also breathed a sigh of relief. This divine phoenix gold was more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. He could see that this divine phoenix gold's spiritual wisdom was about to take shape. If the Prime Heavenly Emperor hadn't found it and captured it, it wouldn't be long before it truly formed its spiritual wisdom. Although it could not compare to the incomparably huge piece of divine phoenix gold that accompanied the phoenix ancestor, once this top-grade divine material successfully developed sentience, it would be much stronger than those so-called geniuses at birth. It would be a deity at birth, and its future cultivation would advance by leaps and bounds. It would not take long for it to advance to the quasi-emperor level. Even if it could not become an emperor in the future, it would become one of the strongest experts below the emperor level. It could be said that it was on the verge of a glorious life. Who would have thought that it would be found by the central heavenly emperor? Now it had fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands. It could be said that its fate was full of misfortunes. However, there was nothing that could be done about it. It was very difficult for these foreign species to attain Tao. This was because their starting point was too high and the heavens were fair. With such a high starting point, the hardships they faced were naturally far beyond that of ordinary people. If not for the time robe, Yi Shiwen would have been able to capture this piece of divine phoenix gold. However, that would have taken a lot of time. He would have probably bumped into the experts of the celestial races. At that time, he would not have been able to escape even if he wanted to. Now that he had the help of the time robe, everything would be much easier. After subduing the divine phoenix gold, Yi Shiwen rushed towards the world seed without stopping. This world seed was directly locked in the primal chaos by countless chains of laws. The central heavenly emperor had already predicted that there would be enough space for this world seed. As long as this world seed took root and sprouted one day, it would be able to grow very quickly. Many experts of the central heavenly realm were on the verge of tears of blood when they saw this scene. This was a supreme divine material left behind by their central heavenly emperor. They had never used it before. Now it had actually fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands. It had benefited this enemy of theirs. Why is the heavens blind? Why didn't they just strike this guy down with a thunderbolt? Many people roared angrily. They felt that the heavens were really too unfair. In the past, others had always felt that the celestial race was a completely unfair and unreasonable existence. However, things were different now. Compared to them, Yi Shiwen was more like the son of the heavens. They were called the celestial race, but they only felt that they were illegitimate children. After Yi Shiwen had broken the chains of the world's principles, the entire world's seed emitted 7 colored rays of light. Bursts of ripples of the great way manifested. This world's seed suddenly concealed itself in the primal chaos, and was about to disappear into the primal chaos. If he really let it escape, an unknown world might really grow up in the primal chaos countless years later. However, Yi Shiwen was already prepared. How could he let it escape? Yi Shiwen suddenly reached out with his big hand. Countless power of time was attached to his hand. Then, he directly grabbed the world seed. Countless streams of time power formed a huge screen that locked the seed of the world within. At this moment, something shocking happened. An astonishing power of time suddenly erupted from the world seed. It was like an energy shock wave that swept out and actually broke Yi Shiwen's power of time. Then, it turned into an even more terrifying light and escaped into the primal chaos. Although this world seed had not yet unfolded, it already had the will of the world. This will existed in every world. Moreover, it would continue to grow along with the growth of the world, becoming more and more powerful. The more powerful the world, the stronger its will. This was the so-called Heaven's Way, which was not allowed to be violated. Now it was just a world seed. Although this will was weak, it had already been born. It was absolutely not willing to be captured again. Although Yi Shiwen was a little surprised, fortunately, his reaction was also very fast. He directly rushed out and rushed into the primal chaos. Bursts of power of time erupted from the time robe. All of a sudden, the primal chaos, the world, and the world seed were stabilized. In the primal chaos, space and time originally did not exist. It was just a piece of primal chaos, and nothing existed. However, after the formation of space and time, a fundamental universe would be formed. Only then would other laws be born, and only then would a huge universe be formed. And the time robe could even stabilize the primal chaos where time did not exist at all. One could imagine how powerful it was. This was a means that only the Emperor had. It was unimaginable. After being stabilized, Yi Shiwen quickly grabbed the world seed and suppressed it. Then, Yi Shiwen finally returned. By then, the countless members of the Yao race had almost emptied out the Central World's treasure trove. It had long since been emptied. Many of the Central World's experts had already bitten their lip. However, they dared not step forward to stop them. Although Yi Shiwen was not around, the members of the Yao race army were not to be trifled with. Furthermore, there were too many of them. Yi Shiwen directly sucked the members of the Yao race into the demon beckoning banner, and all the treasures in the treasure trove fell into Yi Shiwen's hands. Let's go. Yi Shiwen's figure disappeared into the depths of the starry sky. Some time after Yi Shiwen's disappearance, the first powerful aura finally arrived. It was the other Tian race experts who had rushed over to provide reinforcements. However, it was already too late. Yi Shiwen had already looted the Central World. Immediately after, many more powerful auras arrived. When they saw the treasure trove that had been looted clean, they all cursed loudly. They were furious, but there was nothing they could do. Chapter 2860. At this time, Yi Shiwen had already entered the depths of the universe. It was too late to catch up. Countless members of the celestial race were crying. The entire central treasury had been taken away. No one knew how much had been lost. However, in the process of the struggle between the two sides, this was unavoidable. Before the world, only one overlord was needed. There was no need for a second one. In the past, their armies had also attacked one world after another like this. They had broken through the worlds and killed all the living creatures. At that moment, many of the Secret Alliance's experts finally saw what had happened. They watched as their alliance master killed his way into the Central World. That top-notch expert, whom they had thought to be unreachable, had been killed by Yi Shiwen. In a short period of time, Yi Shiwen had consecutively killed two great experts. They were thoroughly convinced. Such an alliance master might be able to bring them to the peak. In addition, Yi Shiwen had looted the treasure house of the celestial race. Although they did not know how much of it had flowed back into their hands, the Central World's heritage was more than 100 times that of the Secret Alliance. Even if a little of it flowed out, it would be a huge profit for them. While they were still immersed in this fantasy, Yi Shiwen stepped on the Golden Rainbow Bridge and crossed the entire void of the universe. He had no intention of stopping. Instead, he headed towards the next place. Where is he going? Many people began to pay attention. Compared to the beginning, there were many more people. One person had trampled an emperor's inheritance. This kind of prestige made people tremble. Who dared to underestimate this person? At this time, everyone suddenly realized that Yi Shiwen had actually killed his way into the demon realm. Yi Shiwen's arrival in the demon realm immediately caused a huge commotion. The demon realm also received the news immediately. It couldn't be helped. He had just trampled the Central World. Such a world with an emperor's inheritance had actually been trampled by Yi Shiwen in such a short period of time. Although he did not have a Dao tool to oversee it, he was still far superior to the ordinary king-ranked sections. An existence that could trample a king-ranked sect in minutes had been trampled instead. How could they not be shocked? What did he want to do here? If it was before, then perhaps they wouldn't be too worried. After all, Yi Shiwen didn't have so much courage. He had many enemies in the devil world, and it was unknown how many people wanted to eradicate him. It was good enough that he had dared to appear. Now, they didn't dare to feel that way. This Yi Shiwen was brimming with killing intent. He most likely did not come with good intentions. In addition, Yi Shiwen had just swept through the central realm and obtained countless riches. This was enough for him to become invincible by relying on the time robe. Could it be that he wants to target the demon realm? That is not impossible. Earlier, didn't he say that the reason he invited the Central Cultivation World over was because the Central Cultivation World attacked him while he was undergoing his tribulation? Someone from the Devil Realm should have made a move as well. Previously, when he was undergoing the tribulation, he was silent. Now, he's planning to settle the score. But if that's the case, I don't know how many enemies he'll make. Going too far is as bad as not going far enough. If he continues like this, no matter how strong he is, there'll be a limit. When the time comes and everyone joins hands, even he won't be able to get away with it. What's impossible about that? I didn't see him having any misgivings when he swept through the Central Cultivation World. He is young and complacent. He has achieved the Tao at a young age. He is simply unbridled and has no scruples. Many people admitted that Yi Shiwen was very strong. He was definitely among the strongest. However, he was not at the absolute peak, let alone someone who had achieved the Tao and become an emperor. Even an emperor lord would not act unbridledly and provoke the public. Even an emperor lord would not be able to fight against the entire world alone. After all, the ancient emperor lord inheritances always contained some forbidden technique. There had been several demon lords in the devil realm. Their base of operations and headquarters were also here. This was different from the Central Cultivation World. Worlds like the Central Cultivation World were actually just fragments that had split off from the ancestral land of the Tian clan. The real Tian clan had already collapsed during the two heavenly wars. The Central Cultivation World was just a place where they could seek shelter for the rest of their lives. However, the Devil Realm was completely different. The Devil Realm had never collapsed since ancient times. Hence, the inheritances of the demon lords in the Devil Realm contained some forbidden technique. One of the human race's emperors had fallen in the Devil Realm. However, he had pursued the demon lords too deeply. In the end, both sides had suffered great losses and died together. One could imagine how dangerous it was in the demon world. Now, Yi Shiwen had actually come to the Devil Realm. Did he want to continue his tough policy? If he really did that, he would probably be resisted by the royal families. Although the royal families of the devil race had internal conflicts and were always dirty, they were very united when it came to outsiders. After all, they were still of the same race. They were different from outsiders. Yi Shiwen's arrival instantly made the entire devil race nervous, especially the big shots of the devil realm. All of them suddenly became nervous. On the contrary, the bottom level of the devil race did not have much of a reaction. Firstly, they did not have so many channels to know about Yi Shiwen's arrival. Secondly, unless it was a war of extermination, it would be very difficult to involve them. Many geniuses of the devil race sighed with emotion. In the past, they had competed with Yi Shiwen. However, only a few years had passed. The difference between the two sides was like heaven and earth. Yi Shiwen could even kill peak quasi-emperors. What kind of concept was that? Even their ancestors could not stop him if they personally came forward. Many years ago, when Yi Shiwen had first come to the Devil Realm, everyone had thought that he was just participating in a small game. At that time, the true martial domain had treated it as a life-and-death battle to hone oneself. For the Devil Realm, it was just a small game. Not many geniuses were willing to participate. They had all cultivated and honed themselves in some important places. In the past, they had thought that it was just a game for some ant. Now, the ant that had stood out from the crowd had reached a point where they had to look up to him. They were not even qualified to look up to him anymore. A powerful demon god of the Azura clan looked at Yi Shiwen's golden rainbow bridge that cut through the entire devil realm. He could not help but sigh. In the past, he had competed with Yi Shiwen. At that time, Yi Shiwen was still so weak. He even needed the protection of Princess Man Yun to survive. In the past, he was on par with Princess Man Yun. Now, only a few thousand years had passed. He had already confirmed his Tao and become a god. He had proven his talent. He was indeed a rare genius. However, Yi Shiwen, who was far inferior to him in the past, was now a terrifying figure that even his ancestors couldn't overtake. How could they have imagined that there would be such a day thousands of years ago? It was simply a miracle. In the competition among the same generation, although he was not the best, he was not at a disadvantage. He had never been left far behind. However, Yi Shiwen was a figure who had left the entire world behind. Perhaps they were not qualified to compete with him at all. Yi Shiwen's real opponent should be the figures who had shocked the world since the ancient times. Those heaven-warping geniuses were the great figures who had shone in the long river of history, and not people like them. A gray-haired man stood on the fallen angel clan's heaven's ark with his hands clasped behind his back. There was a hint of melancholy on his handsome face. "Sigh, how many years has it been? How can he grow so fast?" Ling Tian felt somewhat bitter in his mouth. In the past, Yi Shiwen was merely a member of the new generation of the human race who had an ambiguous relationship with his younger sister in his eyes. It had been somewhat difficult for Yi Shiwen to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. However, Yi Shiwen had also reached the peak of the Divine Master realm in these years. He was only a half-step away from the title of king. Such a speed was worthy of his bloodline and the personal training of his ancestor, Lucifer. However, there was still a huge gap between him and this person who had already stepped into the quasi-emperor realm. They didn't seem like figures from the same dimension. Perhaps not many people would believe it if someone were to say that they and Yi Shiwen were from the same generation one day. After all, this was simply too inconceivable. They were from the same generation. However, they didn't seem like existences from the same generation. Sigh, I've always felt that my peak had just begun. I felt that I was just about to embark on the path of glory. However, he has already shone in the entire heavens. Ling Tian clenched his fist. He suddenly felt a deep sense of powerlessness in his heart. He had enough confidence in other people. In fact, he felt that he was only inferior to those peerless figures in terms of time. However, he couldn't say such words in front of Yi Shiwen. His pride didn't allow him to go against his heart and say such words. Meanwhile, many old acquaintances in the devil world also sighed one after another. The disparity between both sides was too great. In fact, it was so great that people couldn't believe it. Had they really competed with each other? Many people in the fallen angel clan were also discussing spiritedly at this time. "I've heard that this Yi Shiwen seems to have some relationship with our little princess," someone said. Originally, Yi Shiwen's matter was almost taboo in the fallen angel clan. It was because of Ling Fei's relationship. In everyone's hearts, Ling Fei was their little princess, and Yi Shiwen was a bastard who wanted to woo their princess. Moreover, he was an outsider. He was just a nobody with an ordinary bloodline. It would have been more or less the same if he had an illustrious background like the Emperor clan's Ji clan or the martial great sect. However, he was just an unknown nobody. Now they had discovered that they were wrong. Yi Shiwen didn't need to rely on his background to set off his fierceness. He was someone else's backer. He was someone else's big tree. He was an illustrious aristocratic family. Now, people would only feel honored to have a relationship with Yi Shiwen. He should come to us. A fallen angel guest. Chapter 2861. The other races were somewhat afraid of Yi Shiwen. However, the fallen angel race was different. They weren't too worried about this issue. After all, it could be said that they had some kind of relationship with Yi Shiwen. After all, the matter between Yi Shiwen and little Princess Ling Fei wasn't a secret in their fallen angel race. On the contrary, it had spread very widely. Moreover, their attitude towards Yi Shiwen couldn't be considered as breaking up an affectionate couple. They didn't support Yi Shiwen at most. But it couldn't be considered as offending Yi Shiwen to death. Yi Shiwen had an engagement with the heavenly phoenix girl. So, how could he make Ling Fei marry him and become his concubine? This was something that the arrogant fallen angel race couldn't do. However, this was just a small matter compared to the life and death enmity between Yi Shiwen and the other races. In fact, it didn't count as a big deal. Many people were looking at Yi Shiwen. They didn't know where his first stop in the devil world would be. Yi Shiwen quickly made his decision. Yi Shiwen's first stop had gone beyond everyone's expectations. He had arrived at the fallen angel race. He had arrived at the fallen angel race's lair, the heavens Arkansas. The lair of the fallen angel race had always been mysterious. It couldn't be said that no one in the devil world didn't know about it. In fact, not everyone knew about it. Yi Shiwen had come to the devil world in the past. But he hadn't been able to find the lair of the fallen angel race. However, he had found the heaven's ark with just a glance now. It was said that the fallen angel Lucifer had brought this heaven's ark out of the heaven in the past. And he had brought it into the devil world. The fallen angel race hadn't accepted the devil world when he had first fallen into the devil world. Both sides had fiercely fought for countless years. So, how could they have accepted each other so easily? Both sides had fought for many years. Finally, the devil race had accepted the existence of the fallen angel race. Moreover, the fallen angel race had become the 8th royal race in the devil world. This hadn't been accepted casually. Instead, it had been achieved through fighting. And this heaven's ark had allowed the fallen angel race to gain a foothold in the unfamiliar devil world. It was said that it contained the secret of the birth of the fallen angel race. It was an extremely powerful divine tool. It was said that it had once contended against a terrifying existence of a Tao tool. Yi Shiwen had just approached it when he immediately felt a faintly discernible Taoist power obstructing his advance. This is a Tao artifact. How is this possible? As everyone knows, Lucifer, the Lord of fallen angels, is only a powerful quasi-emperor. He is not a real emperor. Since he is not an emperor, how can this ark of heaven turn into a Tao tool? This was unscientific. It was common knowledge that only existences at the level of imperial lords could refine their own Tao artifact. There was no doubt about this. The conditions for a Tao artifact to take shape were too harsh. It could not be made with just precious divine materials. Most importantly, it had to be infused with the great Tao of imperial lords. Without this, it would at most be a pseudo-Tao artifact. It seemed that there were still secrets in the angel race that he didn't know about. However, the angel race had always been low-key for so many years. Everyone knew more about the angel race than the ancient records in the legends. In fact, they didn't know much about them. The descendants of the fallen angel clan were walking in the world unceasingly. However, they were only a small number of descendants. The majority of the clansmen were living in seclusion. Therefore, everyone could only judge from the bodies of these descendants that the fallen angel clan should be very strong. They had a small number of elite. Yi Shiwen was stunned for a moment. However, he reacted immediately. He cupped his hands in obeisance and said, "Senior Lucifer, this junior Yi Shiwen has come to pay a visit." Yi Shiwen's voice had barely faded when he heard a gentle voice coming from inside. "Dear friend, Yi has come. I'm overjoyed. Come in." A rainbow bridge suddenly appeared in this ark of heaven. It led directly to the inside of the Arkansas. And the other end of the rainbow bridge extended to Yi Shiwen's feet. Yi Shiwen didn't stop. He immediately stepped inside. He had already entered the inside of the Ark of Heaven in a moment. The inside of the Ark was full of death energy and devil energy. However, it was different from the usual desolate scene of the devil world. This place was full of vitality. It was exuding endless rays of light. One could see fallen angels flying in the sky along the way. These fallen angels couldn't see him because his speed was too fast. They could only feel a golden silhouette sweeping past in front of them. They didn't have enough time to react. What's that? Many of the fallen angels hadn't reacted yet. However, Yi Shiwen had already disappeared into the void. Yi Shiwen entered the deepest part of the Ark of Heaven. There was a garden full of birdsong and fragrant flowers. The power of light was pervading everywhere. It was very difficult for everyone to imagine that there was such a place filled with light attribute energy inside the Ark of Heaven. As everyone knew, although devil energy wasn't the only kind of energy in the devil world, there were many other energies that were compatible with devil energy. Light attribute energy, which was completely opposite to this kind of energy, should never appear in the devil world. However, it had appeared in the Ark of Heaven. Yi Shiwen was amazed by this fact. In the garden, a handsome man dressed in a luxurious robe was sitting on a stone bench. He was drinking by himself. He had wings on his back. Unlike ordinary fallen angels, his hair was golden. The wings on his back were not grayish-white. Instead, they were pure snow-white. He had 12 pairs of wings, exuding a holy aura. His body exuded a kind of supreme power. He was absolutely tyrannical to an extreme level. He wasn't any weaker than the strongest Mahasvara that Yi Shiwen knew. Among the fallen angels, there was only one person who could have such a tyrannical cultivation. That person was the leader of the fallen angel clan, fallen angel Lucifer. Yi Shiwen had never expected that Lucifer, whom he had always wanted to meet, would be like this. He was completely different from Ling Fei, Ling Tian, and the others. He was a super powerhouse brimming with the law of light. He had single-handedly propped up a piece of heaven and earth in this boundless death energy and devil energy. Moreover, he wasn't affected by it at all. This was unimaginably powerful. However, he also found it a little strange. The fallen angel race didn't exist in the beginning. They had evolved after those angels had fallen. The fallen angel race's original light saint technique obviously couldn't survive in the devil world. Therefore, they had switched to devil way cultivation methods, and gradually transformed into fallen angels. Moreover, the devil way cultivation methods of their race had been adapted and provided by Lucifer. Lucifer was the creator of the devil way. So, it was impossible for him to not know a bit of devil way martial arts. Lucifer clearly had an unimaginable comprehension of the devil way, since he could provide the quasi-emperor level devil way cultivation method. This meant that it wasn't that Lucifer hadn't practiced the devil race's cultivation method. On the contrary, he had clearly practiced them to the extreme. He had practiced to an extremely profound realm where light and darkness were of the same origin. He had returned to his original state, and had restored everything to its original state. This was another kind of astonishing realm. Yi Shiwen still felt as if he was facing a ferocious tiger when he faced Lucifer at present. This man had founded the fallen angel race. Moreover, he had fought his way to the position of one of the 8 great clans of the fallen angel race in the devil world. So, he wasn't an ordinary person. In fact, powerful wasn't enough to describe him. Perhaps he had already reached the last step, and was only a little bit away. One day in the future, he might even directly attain the Tao. This was because his cultivation was unimaginably deep. In order to take the final step, he had already accumulated enough. Perhaps all he lacked was that little bit of luck. Yi Shiwen thought about it. After all, this man was a good friend of Yi Mo's master, the Devil King. So, he was obviously not an ordinary person since he had taken a fancy to someone like the Devil King. Please take a seat. Lucifer looked at Yi Shiwen. The corner of his mouth raised slightly, and he said, Yi Shiwen didn't act pretentiously. He directly sat on the stone bench in front of Lucifer. Senior, please forgive me for my presumptuous visit this time. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and said, Although we are all on the same path, on the path of seeking way, whether it is from Fair's side or from your Devil King's inheritance, I can still afford to call you Senior, Lucifer said with a slight smile on his face. His smile made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. If one were to look at the person, it would be impossible to imagine that this was actually one of the 8 great Devil Kings of the Devil World that was praised in the myriad worlds. He was a senior old devil who had once defeated the invincible existence of the Devil World. You haven't truly inherited his inheritance. However, you've done much better than I had imagined. He wouldn't have any regrets if he had known about this. It's a pity that you're not a devil after all. So, you can't truly inherit his inheritance. I hope that you can find a genuine inheritance for him in the future. It would be a pity if his lineage were to be severed like this. Lucifer continued. The matter between you and Fair was mainly because her parents didn't approve of it. However, they shouldn't be talking about the issue of who isn't worthy of whom now. This junior will inherit the Devil King's lineage if I meet a suitable person, Yi Shiwen said. Yi Shiwen also felt a bit of a headache when he mentioned Ling Fei. He didn't know what to say. However, you've been too reckless in coming to the Devil World. Nobody cared about you when you came to the Devil World last time. Those old guys didn't deliberately make things difficult for you because it wasn't necessary. However, I'm afraid that those old guys won't be able to eat and sleep well this time. So, it's not impossible for them to join hands to deal with you. Lucifer looked at Yi Shiwen with a somewhat satisfied expression in his eyes. It was a bit like looking at a son-in-law, but it was also a bit like looking at a talented junior. Chapter 2862. Or it could be both. Yi Shiwen had such an identity in his eyes. He sighed with emotion in his heart. His old friend of many years had ascended to the peak, and had been invincible. However, he had ended up dead in the end. Yi Shiwen wasn't his true disciple. However, he had obtained his inheritance anyway. Therefore, Yi Shiwen was like his own nephew as far as he was concerned. The Fallen Angel clan had wanted to beat and kill Yi Shiwen because of Ling Fei's matter. But, he had calmed down the matter behind the scenes. Otherwise, how could the Fallen Angel clan have left the matter at that? The Fallen Angel clan was very proud. So, they wouldn't even look favorably upon the other royal clans of the devil race. They had entered the devil world for so many years. However, the situation of the Fallen Angel clan marrying outside the devil world could be counted on one's fingers. In fact, it could be said that it was as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Moreover, Ling Fei wasn't an ordinary fallen angel. She was their little princess. Therefore, it could be said that she had caused a sensation in the entire Fallen Angel clan at that time. However, he hadn't declared his position. He had calmed down this matter in secret because he knew that Yi Shiwen had obtained the inheritance of the Devil King. Yi Shiwen had become more and more famous afterwards. He had become more and more famous like his own nephew. And the entire Fallen Angel clan had gradually become more and more speechless. It could be said that the reason why the Fallen Angel clan had opposed Yi Shiwen was because of the pride in their hearts. Yi Shiwen faintly smiled. Then, he said, what can they do if they join hands at this time? His words revealed a kind of strong self-confidence. He might not be able to sweep the entire world. However, he would be able to protect himself. He wouldn't need to worry even if he were to enter the devil world with great fanfare. He would have this kind of self-confidence as long as he had the time robe. You're still too self-confident. You must know that the inheritance of the Emperor Lord isn't simple. It's not impossible for them to kill you at all costs. You shouldn't underestimate the invincible Emperor Lord of the ancient times. They've been invincible since ancient times. And it's not without reason. Lu Shi's words revealed a bit of worry. However, he didn't say anything. After all, an existence at Yi Shiwen's level had his own pride and self-esteem. Sometimes it wouldn't be a good thing to say too much. Smart people would naturally understand when to stop. Yi Shiwen also understood what Lucifer meant. The demon race in the demon realm probably still had some unimaginable method. These methods were different from the ones in the central great realm. These were terrifying methods that could truly kill him. This was the reason why Yi Shiwen didn't dare to stay in the central great world for a long time. The means left behind by the Emperor were simply too shocking, and he had no choice but to be on guard against them. "Thank you for reminding me, Senior," Yi Shiwen said. "I will be careful." Lucifer took a deep look at Yi Shiwen. "Then," he said, "I know that some members of the demon race attacked you while you were undergoing your tribulation. Therefore, you want to get revenge. However, the demon race is different from the central world. If you want to use the same trick again and use what happened in the central world on the demon race, it will be impossible." Clearly, Lucifer had secretly seen how Yi Shiwen had swept through the central great realm. However, even so, he still didn't believe that Yi Shiwen had the strength to wipe out the demon realm. Their foundations were completely different. The last time you uprooted the Demon Eagle clan, it had already caused a huge uproar. If I hadn't been helping you in the dark, and if the Alliance Army's fight against the Celestial clan was inevitable, do you think your matter would have ended so easily? Many members of the demon race are afraid of you. If you uproot the Demon Eagle clan again, you will really become a mortal enemy of the demon race. Yi Shiwen pondered this for a while before saying, "Actually, I didn't expect to wipe out the demon realm's royal clan." He knew very well what the bottom line of his strength was. If I did that, the only ones who would be happy would be the Celestial clan. I won't go so far as to do such a thing at such a critical juncture. However, this matter cannot be resolved so easily. You must give me an explanation," Yi Shiwen said with a dignified expression. He didn't want to get to the bottom of this matter, but it didn't mean that this matter could be easily resolved. Otherwise, more and more people would come to look for trouble. "What kind of compensation do you want?" Lucifer looked at Yi Shiwen with satisfaction. Yi Shiwen was still rational. He wasn't a madman. That was enough. As for those royal clans' vitality being injured and vomiting blood, Lucifer didn't care. As the current #1 expert of the demon race, what he could do for the demon race was already his limit. He couldn't go any further. "There are a lot of things. My current cultivation needs a lot of Emperor Source and some divine materials that can be used to cast Tao tools," Yi Shiwen said with a slight smile. He said it carelessly as if he was talking about some trivial matter. Even with Lucifer's current cultivation and shrewdness, his heart couldn't help but change slightly. Divine materials? Moreover, divine materials that could be cast into Tao tools. He was also a lord of a territory. So, how could he not understand how precious this kind of divine material was? It was extremely rare. He hadn't collected much of it for so many years. However, Yi Shiwen had asked for one of them. Not to mention, there were also many emperor origins. The price was definitely not cheap. In addition to the manpower that was lost in the heavens' retribution, it could be said that those royal families had suffered a double loss. They had definitely suffered a heavy loss. However, Lucifer calmed down immediately. This was just as well. Who asked those people to disregard his advice and attack? They didn't take him seriously at all. As long as their foundation wasn't shaken, everything would be fine. Moreover, those divine materials were useless in the hands of those vulgar people. Although these divine materials were invincible divine materials that could be used to cast Emperor Tao tools, if they didn't even have an Emperor Tao tool, then these divine materials might look precious, but they might be useless for millions of years. It would be a waste to leave them with them. Deep down, he was also extremely proud. In fact, most of the fallen angels had learned their pride from him. Ordinary people were not qualified to enter his discerning eyes. Nowadays, there were very few people among the 8 royal clans of the devil race that could enter his discerning eyes. And there wasn't a single young descendant. In fact, Yi Shiwen was probably the only one in the entire world who could enter his discerning eyes. This was a recent matter. Yi Shiwen had been to the demon world before, but he didn't even know where the gate of the Heaven's Ark was. It was conceivable how difficult it was to obtain the recognition of these arrogant fallen angels. All right, I can agree to this condition on behalf of them. However, I'm afraid it won't be that easy for you to take away the things easily. I can only help you to restrain those old guys so that they won't bully the weak and disregard their dignity to attack. As for the other matters, it all depends on you. Lucifer looked at Yi Shiwen and said, "Even so, this junior is already very grateful." Yi Shiwen nodded and said, his heart was a lot more at ease. Wasn't his only worry that those old monsters who had lived for countless years would suddenly attack? If they suddenly attacked, then even if Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid, his plan to obtain a lot of benefits would be completely dispelled. It's just a piece of cake. But you have some secrets that even I can't see through. You must have had a great adventure, Lucifer said to himself. Seeing that Yi Shiwen seemed to be a little embarrassed, he said, "You don't have to explain much. I have no intention of finding out what kind of secrets you have." Although Lucifer said so, in fact, there was an incomparable shock in his heart. Ordinary people thought that Yi Shiwen had a Dao tool in his hand. It was already his biggest trump card. It was even different from the 2 Dao tools that everyone knew. There was also the 3rd demon beckoning banner. Although it was broken, it was still a Dao tool. In the future, he might be able to refine it again. Not to mention, he knew about Tianyuan Mirror, but no one knew about it. One person sat on 4 Dao tools. Such an expression could be regarded as heaven-defying. Even the strongest person in recent times, Emperor Qin, did not have such an extravagant time. However, this inadvertent remark of his had exposed Yi Shiwen's true trump card. Yi Shiwen's true core secret wasn't these Dao tools. Instead, it was some other fortuitous encounter. How could this not make him feel incomparably shocked? Even with his wisdom, he couldn't imagine what kind of existence could be more precious than the Dao tools. This was Yi Shiwen's true trump card. It could be said that a storm was set off in his heart, but his face remained calm. As he said, he did not want to further explore the secret. It was just that he inadvertently guessed this fact that shocked him. Perhaps one day in the future, he really had the possibility of entering the endless Emperor path. Not to mention a junior who had only cultivated for a few thousand years, even among his peers, or even those with more seniority, there were not many who truly had such a possibility. He only had profound skills, but in fact, his path forward had already been cut off. The path to becoming an emperor was extremely broad, but not everyone could find it. "Thank you for your understanding, senior." Yi Shiwen nodded, and there were some faint speculations in his heart. These are nothing. One day in the future, we may have to conquer the endless emperor path together. Maybe there will be a day when we become friends, Lucifer said with an extremely serious expression. He really regarded Yi Shiwen as an equal existence. This was a sudden feeling, and even he himself couldn't explain why. "Do you know why those emperors who dominated the world since ancient times have disappeared now?" Chapter 2863. Do you know why those emperors who have dominated the world since ancient times have disappeared now? Lucifer's words instantly shocked Yi Shiwen. He could not even keep a straight expression on his face because this topic actually involved the legendary emperors. It was naturally difficult for ordinary questions to move his state of mind with such cultivation. It was not an exaggeration to say that he could remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. However, this question was related to the biggest secret since ancient times. If one were to talk about the secrets of the world, apart from the big secrets such as the birth of the world, the biggest secret should be the reason why the emperors disappeared one by one. This was a huge secret, and it involved the inheritance of many emperors. They were also looking for the reason. Today, apart from those emperors who had fallen, even those who had not fallen had disappeared one after another. Some silently disappeared from the world, while others were completely different. They ascended in front of everyone's eyes. Yes, they actually ascended. Although it was only recorded in some ancient books, they were all from the inheritance of those emperors, so it would not be fake. That kind of scene was like ascending. However, countless people were completely unwilling to believe it. What a joke! The emperors were already the most powerful group of people in the world. How could there be ascending? It was nonsense. If there was really such a high-level world, it was impossible that they did not know anything about it. There have been a lot of discussions since ancient times. There are many theories. Could it be that they really ascended? Yi Shiwen looked at Lucifer and asked tentatively. That's just the opinion of mortals. However, what they said may not be unreasonable. It is not to the extent of ascending, but it is certain that they left. Lucifer said with a smile flashing across his mouth. Although there have never been emperors in my fallen angel tribe, I also have my own sources of information. Those emperors left most likely to compete for the good fortune. It has never stopped since ancient times. Yi Shiwen was shocked. Compete for the good fortune? What was it that even the emperors had to leave their worldly foundation to compete for it? This seemingly completely unscientific thing itself may contain a huge secret that no one knew. In this regard, Lucifer had lived for countless years. He might really have some research and walked ahead of everyone. Dare I ask, Senior, what exactly is this good fortune? Yi Shiwen asked. I don't know. I just vaguely feel that maybe I haven't reached that level of skill and cultivation. However, from the records of so many ancient books, it is very likely to be a real transcendence. Lucifer said. I don't know. I just vaguely feel that maybe I haven't reached that level of skill and cultivation. True transcendence? Yi Shiwen's eyes tightly wrinkled. This contained an ancient secret. However, there were too many things that he didn't understand. Perhaps one day, when he truly became an emperor, he would be able to truly understand. However, it was clearly something incredible. Otherwise, how could it be something simple? Since ancient times, so many sovereign emperors, as long as they were alive, would rush to fight for it. Yes, perhaps this is the real opportunity to transcend, just like the transformation of jumping out of the 3 realms and not within the 5 elements after attaining the Tao. Lucifer said, but I don't think so. I'm afraid that not only are there great opportunities and great fortunes inside, but there are also great dangers and great terrors. How could it be? Yi Shiwen asked. Although I don't know too much, I obviously can't be wrong. You should be able to see that the Heaven's Ark is actually a Tao tool, and it is impossible for me to sacrifice and refine a Tao tool. Lucifer said without the slightest hesitation. Bluntly speaking, this Heaven's Ark was not refined by him. Yi Shiwen nodded. Only sovereign emperors could refine a Tao tool. This was an iron law. No one could break it. It was not because of the lack of techniques, nor was it because of the lack of precious divine materials. The real reason was the lack of the Tao of sovereign emperors. Without this key thing, no matter how many divine materials there were, it was impossible to cast a real Tao tool. There was no other way to go. Since ancient times, no one had ever succeeded in forging a Tao tool. Yes. Yi Shiwen nodded. In fact, there is a reason why my clan fell from the heaven to the devil world. My clan's sovereign emperor once told me that he had entered an unknown existence. At first, we could still receive news from there. But soon, we didn't receive any more news. The last message we received through the Heaven's Ark was only one word: despicable and shameless. Lucifer's expression began to become a little excited. It didn't seem like his current supreme status. Therefore, we speculated that the sovereign emperor of my clan might have been ambushed in an unknown place. After that, we even felt a boundless will descending upon the Heavens Arkansas. It directly woke up the Heavens Ark, and a world-shaking battle broke out. Finally, the other party was scared away. After that, we finally decided to enter the Devil world for the survival of our clan, and seek refuge. Lucifer tirelessly explained the secret of their clan's fall. Some parts were consistent with the rumors outside. That was, Lucifer had led this incident. Most of the heaven's power had followed him. However, there were still some who were unwilling to leave. Now, their whereabouts had long been unknown. However, there were still many secrets that everyone didn't know. If Lucifer hadn't personally told him these secrets, he wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. It was simply impossible. What kind of terrifying existence was the sovereign emperor? He could suppress all the chaos in the world by himself. As long as he was alive, the world could be stable for countless years. However, he had been ambushed. So, there's actually such a thing. If Senior hadn't personally told me, I wouldn't have believed it. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt a chill on his back. Some things were really beyond his imagination. Even the sovereign emperor could be ambushed. What was impossible in this world? Moreover, according to my speculation, it's very likely that it's easy to go to that place. However, it's very difficult to return. Otherwise, why haven't those sovereign emperors returned since ancient times? Lucifer said with a dignified expression. No, I remember that there were sovereign emperors who had returned to calm the chaos in the world. Yi Shiwen vaguely remembered that there were indeed sovereign emperors who had left and returned. Do you think that those sovereign emperors who had left and returned had truly left? In fact, they didn't leave at all. According to the information I received, they were just hiding in seclusion. However, everyone didn't know about it. Therefore, they regarded them as the same thing as those sovereign emperors who had left. The real sovereign emperors who had left had never returned. Lucifer said. Only then did Yi Shiwen know that there was such a secret in it. This time, why are countless people facing the Tian clan as if they are facing a great enemy, and almost overturn the entire myriad worlds? That is because it is impossible for them to contact their ancestors who have already left. Otherwise, if they really had that method, with just a single prayer, a monarch would return from that unknown world, and it would be impossible for a mere Tian clan to cause any trouble. Although the various clans paid a heavy price to seal them, but to seal them twice in a row, in fact, the strength of the various clans is already above that of the Tian clan. Lucifer said. If that's the case, if it's impossible to contact all the emperors, then once the rebellious emperor really achieves Tao this time, the world will be in chaos. Yi Shiwen's face suddenly changed as he thought of this matter. The reason why the outside world hadn't completely collapsed yet was that they were thinking of the possibility that one of the sovereign emperors would return after hearing their prayers. At that time, there would still be hope for everything. Therefore, you severely injured the rebellious emperor twice, which greatly delayed the time of his attainment. As far as I know, after getting the opportunity to attain attainment, he should have already attained attainment by this time. Only the rebellious emperor is an exception. The fundamental reason is that he was severely injured by you twice with the Avicii sword. However, even so, I'm afraid it can only delay time. Once he achieves attainment, then our side will instantly fall into a disadvantage. Lucifer said helplessly. There were some things that even he couldn't do anything about. Even I didn't expect that the opportunity to become an emperor would fall into the hands of the Heaven clan. This can only be said to be God's will. Yi Shiwen's expression became dignified. The sense of crisis in his heart became more intense after hearing Yi Shiwen's words. Ha 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 ha, maybe you will have the opportunity to catch up with him. Even I have to be amazed by the speed of your cultivation progress. Lucifer said, if there is a day, the two of us can join forces to venture into the unknown place. Although the unknown place is likely to be a great horror, there must be a reason since it can attract so many sovereign emperors to go there one after another. I think I will definitely not be able to resist the temptation at that time. How about it, are you interested? Yi Shiwen was a little speechless. Lucifer's thoughts were jumping too fast. Just now, he was talking about the threat of the rebellious emperor. Now, he was talking about going to the unknown place to pursue the footprints of the sovereign emperors. However, he was a little surprised. Why is Lucifer so confident that I can achieve attainment one day? Does he have any unknown means? If this is the case, it would certainly be the best. If there is a day when both of us achieve attainment, then we can go together. Yi Shiwen said after thinking about it. All right. Lucifer said with a slight smile, I believe that such a day will come. Sooner or later, we will walk that path. Chapter 2864. This would be an unprecedentedly dangerous path if what Lucifer had said was true. In fact, even the Emperor Realm experts might die in it. The safest method was obviously for the two of them to travel together. Of course, this was on the premise that the two of them would have the opportunity to reach the summit together. Yi Shiwen had also considered whether it was possible for him to resist the temptation. The best way was naturally to stay in the heavens and the 10,000 world. He would never consider going to that unknown place for the rest of his life. However, he felt that the probability of that happening was very low. There had been so many Emperor Realm experts since the ancient times. Which one of them wasn't an outstanding figure among millions of living beings? Their willpower was so firm that it was rare. However, they had still gone to that unknown place. So, there must be something there that was attracting these outstanding people of their generation. It was just like Yi Shiwen's goal a long time ago. His goal had been to prove his Tao and seek eternal life. However, he had continued to cultivate even further after he had proved his Tao. It was as if a whip was constantly lashing him from behind. It was constantly urging him. There was no need for others to say anything. The flames of unwillingness in his heart were enough to push him to a higher and more unknown realm. Those Emperor Realm experts that had existed since the ancient times might have different natures. Some were cruel and tyrannical. Some were gentle and benevolent. Some were decisive and murderous. However, they had a common characteristic. And that was, they had an unimaginable ambition to reach the peak of martial arts. This ambition had never stopped. Yi Shiwen felt that it would be very difficult for him to resist the temptation of this ambition. Perhaps there was a reason for him to go further. Yi Shiwen didn't stay after he had met Lucifer. He left the Ark of Heaven. He didn't meet Ling Fei either. It wasn't that his time was tight. It was just that Ling Fei was undergoing closed-door training inside the Ark of Heaven. She had been doing so for several years. Her parents didn't want her to go and look for Yi Shiwen in the beginning. So, they had locked her in the Ark of Heaven. However, they had realized that the current situation was unstable. So, they hadn't allowed her to come out so casually. Moreover, it would be very beneficial for the Sin Realm to deal with such a turbulent situation by enhancing their strength. The Fallen Angel clan had also dispatched many people to the headquarters of the Allied forces. However, the Fallen Angel clan still wanted to hide from the world. The Devil world was too powerful. There were several immortal emperor inheritances there. Even the heavenly race couldn't attack the Devil world without solving other problems. Therefore, the Devil world was undoubtedly the safest place. Therefore, Yi Shiwen was very relieved. Yi Shiwen only stayed in the Fallen Angel clan for a short time before he left, but it caused an uproar. Many people wanted to know what he had said to Lucifer during this time. What would the two peerless masters say to each other? Unfortunately, It was completely different from many people's expectations that a war might break out. Yi Shiwen left peacefully, and the fallen angel clan obviously had no intention of making things difficult for him, let alone doing anything to Yi Shiwen for the benefit of the demon clan. Only a fool would do that. Yi Shiwen's current strength had already made him one of the strongest experts. This wasn't just for show. Some people might be able to suppress Yi Shiwen who possessed a Dao tool. However, it wouldn't be easy to kill him, not to mention that he possessed a peerless Dao tool like the time robe. His life was as tenacious as a cockroach's. Under such circumstances, many people hoped that someone would step in and stop him. However, they definitely did not want that person to be themselves. If they were not careful, they might end up getting killed by him. This was a very obvious point in the Central Realm. After Yi Shiwen left the Ark of Heaven, he went straight to the original Demon Clan's base. Yi Shiwen left the Ark of Heaven and headed towards the encampment of the original demon race. It was the base of the original Demon Lord, the first Demon Lord who had opened up the demon realm. It had never fallen. Even after other Demon Lords had achieved Dao, they were very respectful to this place and never attacked it. The base of the original Demon Lord, the first Demon Lord who had opened up the demon realm, had never fallen. Even after other Demon Lords had achieved Dao, they were very respectful to this place and had never attacked it. The arrival of Yi Shiwen immediately awakened many old fellows, and they stared coldly at Yi Shiwen. Ordinary things would not be able to move these powerful quasi-emperors, but Yi Shiwen was different. The powerful qi and blood on his body had directly alarmed them, and they were all exuding a terrifying aura. Their gazes pierced through the void and landed on Yi Shiwen. Some people were ready to make a move and wanted to attack. However, they knew that they could not suppress Yi Shiwen with their strength. If they burned their qi and blood to the peak and fought with Yi Shiwen, they might suffer a backlash in the end. That was no joke. Many people held their breath. Everyone felt that their hearts were about to stop. It was different from entering the Fallen Angel clan. Yi Shiwen had no enmity with the Fallen Angel clan. He was very polite when he visited them. However, it was completely different from the original Demon Clan. The enmity between Yi Shiwen and the Nightmare Clan was well known. Yi Shiwen had stolen the word demon, which had caused a great uproar in the demon realm. In their opinion, Yi Shiwen was extremely daring. Many people knew that the word demon was in the hands of the original Demon Clan. However, no one dared to have any ideas about the word demon. After all, the strength of the original Demon Clan was already very tyrannical. They were one of the most tyrannical emperor inheritances. Who would have thought that someone would actually do it? Moreover, the person who did it was a human brat from another race. This caused everyone to turn pale with fright. Not only in the original Demon Clan, but many people in the entire demon realm wanted to find trouble with Yi Shiwen. There were even many ambitious people who wanted to kill Yi Shiwen and seize the word demon. After all, this pre-celestial ancient word was too powerful. Its power was boundless. No one would not care about such a powerful pre-celestial ancient word. Previously, they did not dare to kill Yi Shiwen because of the existence of the Alliance headquarters. However, they took the opportunity to attack Yi Shiwen when he was crossing the tribulation. They completely shed all pretense of cordiality. Initially, everyone thought that they were in the bag. Who would have thought that not only did they fail to kill Yi Shiwen, but Yi Shiwen also went on a killing spree when he was crossing the tribulation. He completely killed all the quasi-emperors who came to make trouble. He also severely injured the emperor's corpse and repelled the Dao tool. Thus, he established his supreme prestige. This made many tyrannical emperor inheritances spurt out a mouthful of blood. Yi Shiwen was too heaven-defying. Many people were waiting to see whether the original Demon Clan would kill Yi Shiwen in the face of his arrival. Although the devouring Heaven Devil Jar had already been destroyed, it was still the inheritance of an immortal emperor that had been passed down for many years. So, it was impossible for their abilities to be limited to this. Yi Shiwen, who was unwilling to admit defeat, would inevitably cause a huge collision. This was also the most curious conjecture in many people's hearts. The celestial race was even more eager for this to happen. That would be the best. Many people of the original demon clan could not withstand such pressure and fled one after another. They did not dare to stay, let alone fight against Yi Shiwen. The fate of the Central World had made them completely understand that it was unrealistic to fight against Yi Shiwen. Even ordinary quasi-emperors could not do this, let alone them. Yi Shiwen did not care about these panic-stricken experts of the original demon clan. He directly walked in. At this moment, many tyrannical auras emerged one after another and fell on Yi Shiwen. This was attention, but it was also a warning to Yi Shiwen that he should not go further. Yi Shiwen did not care about this. Instead, he entered the territory of the original demon clan. Yi Shiwen went so deep in but did not attack. What is he trying to do? Could it be that he wants to create a dragon's pool and a tiger's den? If the original demon clan is really desperate, they will activate those Emperor level grade formations. That will be enough to kill him, someone exclaimed. Although Yi Shiwen's performance was too amazing, they had never doubted the strength of the original demon clan. Is he going to destroy another emperor's inheritance? This time, it won't be so simple. This was what many people were thinking. They wanted to see to what extent Yi Shiwen could go. Yi Shiwen went deeper and deeper. Just when everyone was stunned, Yi Shiwen finally opened his mouth. A divine material that is enough to cast a Dao tool, and our grievances will be written off. Yi Shiwen's words immediately caused an uproar. Yi Shiwen, where do you think this is? Do you think you can be so rampant here? Many experts of the original demon clan were extremely angry. What was Yi Shiwen planning to do? Even in the original demon clan, there were only a few peerless divine materials that were enough to cast a Dao tool. Moreover, these materials were accumulated over countless years. Many of the divine materials that could be used to cast Dao tools grew in the chaos. Under normal circumstances, they could not be seen at all. They did not exist in the myriad heavens. Since ancient times, it was unknown how many emperors had achieved the Dao. Even if there were some divine materials that could be used to cast Dao tools, they had already been taken away. Each of the remaining divine materials that could be used to forge Dao artifacts were things that they had expended a great deal of effort to find. Yi Shiwen opened his mouth and wanted to take one away. How could they not be excited? How could they not be resentful? Yi Shiwen, we haven't settled the account of you taking away the word, devil. Now you actually dare to come here and be arrogant. Do you really think that this is a hotel? You can come and go as you please. Yes, Yi Shiwen. Don't even think of coming back here today. Today, I must let you know how terrible the Emperor's inheritance is. It is not something that people like you can covet. Chapter 2865. Many of the old quasi-emperors of the original demon race were infuriated. For so many years, it had always been them who bullied others. When had anyone ever dared to bully the dignified original demon race? This was a great humiliation. Even if the original demon clan was no longer as prosperous as it was in the past, and the original demon king had fallen, they would not be bullied to this extent. We must kill him. He is simply audacious. He dares to blackmail us, the original demon clan. He must be tired of living. Kill! For a moment, the entire origin demon race was filled with shouts of wanting to kill. They were not afraid of destroying the origin demon race's territory. This was their base of operations. Who knew how many sovereign emperor-level arrays there were? No matter how much the origin demon race fought, they would not be able to destroy their base of operations. It was not like this was a minor realm that had split off from the central great realm. So they were not afraid. Moreover, they still had the devouring devil jar. Even if it was broken many times, it was still far better than ordinary divine tools. At least, Yi Shiwen's advantage was not so great. Therefore, they had always been fearless. Yi Shiwen sneered slightly and said, "When I was crossing the tribulation, didn't you send people? Don't think that I don't know. I just don't want to investigate further. Otherwise, do you think this matter can be easily settled? I will give face to Senior Lucifer. As long as you hand over a divine material that can be used to forge a Tao tool, this matter will be settled. Otherwise, as long as I am alive, this karma will not be settled. One day, I will settle it clearly." Yi Shiwen's tough attitude made many hardline members of the original Devil clan extremely angry. This was a blatant threat. He didn't put them in his eyes at all. Did he think that they were soft persimmons that he could pinch at will? Although they sent people to assassinate Yi Shiwen, in their eyes, they did not feel that there was anything wrong with it, because it was not the first time they had done such a thing. Instead, Yi Shiwen dared to threaten them. In their eyes, it was simply an unbearable crime. Their thinking still existed countless years ago. So, they didn't have enough fear towards a rising powerhouse like Yi Shiwen. However, more people had sunk into contemplation. The most terrifying thing was not Yi Shiwen's current situation. At worst, they would fight until the heavens and the earth split apart. Would Yi Shiwen really dare to do anything? Back then, when they were in the Central Great World, they had only managed to flatten the Central Great World because of the time difference. If it was an emperor's inheritance with a Tao tool in hand, it wouldn't even be able to break through this time gap. Therefore, relatively speaking, Yi Shiwen's current threat wasn't much. Yi Shiwen's future was truly terrifying. He had only cultivated for a few thousand years, but he had already become so powerful. Even the people who didn't like him had no choice but to admit that one day, Yi Shiwen would truly step into the ranks of the most powerful group of people. In fact, it was very likely that he would compete for the title of the world's most powerful expert. It was only a matter of time. At that time, even if Yi Shiwen couldn't truly flatten the original demon clan, he would probably have a way to severely damage the original demon clan's vitality and make them decadent for countless years. At that time, they would be further pulled down by the other emperor's inheritances. Based on the grudges between Yi Shiwen and them, this would happen sooner or later. After all, both sides could be said to have a deep hatred. Yi Shiwen had seized the word devil. In the eyes of the original demon clan, this was as great as killing one's parents. For Yi Shiwen, the original demon clan had sent people to disturb him when he was crossing the tribulation. This was also an unforgivable hatred. At this point, there was no other possibility than mutually destroying each other in the end. Perhaps both sides were still afraid of each other now, and hadn't reached that point yet. However, who knew to what extent he could grow in thousands or tens of thousands of years? If he really reached that point, would the foundation of the original demon clan really fall in Yi Shiwen's hands? Unfortunately, Yi Shiwen's current momentum was already established. They had already missed the best opportunity to strangle Yi Shiwen. Even if they destroyed his hidden alliance, it would be useless. He would hide and cultivate for thousands or tens of thousands of years. When he came out again, it would inevitably cause carnage. Thinking of that consequence, many experts of the original demon clan couldn't help but fall silent. No matter how angry they were, they still had to consider what kind of price they would have to pay. Compared to now, if they could erase this earth-shattering grudge with the smallest price, it seemed to be worth it. What are you so angry about? If you were in my situation, would you let me go? Yi Shiwen couldn't help but sneer. After a long time, an old voice came from the depths of the original demon clan. "Brother Yi." An old figure walked out from inside. It turned out to be an old demon. There wasn't a trace of demonic aura on his body. It was just that apart from his outer appearance of a demon, he looked more like a mortal. But the moment he appeared, the warning signs in Yi Shiwen's heart suddenly rose to the highest level. This skinny old demon gave Yi Shiwen a dangerous feeling. It was not inferior to Lucifer. He was a truly terrifying old demon. Perhaps he was the one who could really make decisions in the original demon clan. If this old demon had the heaven-devouring devil jar, Yi Shiwen knew that he wouldn't have a chance of winning. But it wouldn't be a problem for him to escape unscathed. But even so, the vigilance in his heart suddenly rose to the peak. The magic power in his body surged like a raging storm. The time robe was also instantly activated. "Brother Yi, don't be nervous," the old demon said lightly. He only raised his eyelids slightly. "Brother Ye's conditions can't be considered unreasonable. After all, everyone is clear about the merits and demerits of this matter. There's no point in talking about it." The old demon continued, "My clan is willing to let go of the grudge and resolve this grudge with a smile. But there's one more thing that I hope Brother Yi can agree to." "Say it," Yi Shiwen said. "It's about the devil character in Brother Ye's hand. It's very important for my clan. I hope Brother Yi can return it to my clan," the old demon said slowly. At this time, even the most irascible experts of the original demon clan didn't dare to breathe loudly. They wanted to know Yi Shiwen's reply. The devil character was too important for their clan. It was equivalent to their proof. They always said that they were the ancestors of the 10,000 devils in the world. And this devil character was the fundamental proof that they were the ancestors of 10,000 devils. Not to mention that this devil character was the fundamental foundation of casting the heaven-devouring devil jar. Without the devil character, although the heaven-devouring devil jar was still very strong, it couldn't be compared to its peak state. No one knew how much divinity and power it had lost. Since the day it was lost, they had always wanted to take back the devil character. And now it was possible to do so. Although this method was very different from what they wanted to take back, it was still acceptable. Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen. They wanted to know whether he agreed or not. No. Yi Shiwen shook his head. Not now. Yi Shiwen was still constantly comprehending the devil character. It was very important for many of his martial technique. Not to mention the devil's wings and the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Even if he practiced other martial techniques, he would be able to comprehend them by analogy. He couldn't give up. He wouldn't agree even if he had to give up this reconciliation. Both sides were now worried about each other. The original demon clan had a lot of scruples. How could Yi Shiwen not be the same? If the original demon clan was willing to be ruthless and pay a huge price, it was very likely that they could pose a fatal threat to Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, how could he be so easy to talk to and let them go so easily? Fighting against the heavenly race was only one aspect. "Boy, don't be ungrateful," many experts of the original demon clan said angrily. "It doesn't matter," the old demon of the original demon clan said unexpectedly. Just when Yi Shiwen was ready for a bloody battle, he waved his hand and suppressed the restless experts of the original demon clan. "My clan intends to offer 2 divine materials. One of them will be considered as compensation for my clan's previous behavior," said the old demon of the original demon clan. This was a complete statement. The original demon clan had completely bowed their heads in front of Yi Shiwen. It wasn't easy to make such a decision for a veteran emperor's inheritance like them. Even Yi Shiwen was somewhat stunned. "There is one more divine material. It will be considered as redeeming the devil character in your hand," said the old demon slowly. "I know that it is impossible to make you hand over the devil character in a short time. Therefore, my clan is not in a hurry. One day in the future, you will achieve the Tao. Then, I hope that you can return the devil character that belongs to my clan." Everyone was in an uproar. It wasn't because the old demon wanted to exchange for the devil character. After all, the devil character had an extremely important position in the original demon clan. How could they not know that? It wasn't because of the huge concessions they had made in order to exchange for the devil character. This was nothing. What really made them in an uproar was that this old demon was actually optimistic that Yi Shiwen could achieve the Tao and become an emperor one day. How was this possible? At this time, many people were indeed speculating that Yi Shiwen might have the opportunity to become an emperor in the future. Such an evaluation was very rare for a newcomer who had just entered the realm of quasi-emperor. However, the meaning of this old demon was almost certain that Yi Shiwen could step into the realm of emperor and truly achieve the Tao. This was the reason why everyone was in an uproar. Because according to the old demon, the devil character would always be in Yi Shiwen's hands if he couldn't achieve the Tao. And wouldn't the divine material that he had used to redeem it be completely wasted? Chapter 2866. This was a bet that Yi Shiwen would one day attain Tao and become an emperor. He used a supreme divine material that could be cast into a Tao tool to bet that Yi Shiwen could attain Tao and become an emperor. This was a huge sum of money. Even an emperor's inheritance would only have a few pieces of divine material that could be cast into a Tao tool after countless years of accumulation. There would never be more than a few pieces. One could imagine how precious it was. Why was he so confident that Yi Shiwen would be able to step into the realm of emperor? For Yi Shiwen, as long as he didn't die, he would one day step into the ranks of the strongest. He would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Great Freedom Heaven and the others. Even those who were hostile to Yi Shiwen could only accept it. This was something that could be achieved with the accumulation of time. However, attaining Tao and becoming an emperor was another concept altogether. Throughout the ages, there had been only a handful of people who had managed to reach the Mahasvara heaven. Including those who had fallen, there had been quite a number of people who had managed to do so. However, among these people, less than 1% had been able to attain enlightenment. To put it in an exaggerated way, whether one could cultivate to the peak of Great Freedom Heaven or not had nothing to do with attaining Tao. One could not assume that those who cultivated to the peak of Great Freedom Heaven would have the opportunity to attain Tao. Since ancient times until now, those who could cultivate to the level of the Great Freedom Heaven were all peerless geniuses and heroes of the ages. To be honest, many imperial emperors might not have been stronger than them before they attained the Tao. In fact, they were all on the same level. However, some people attained Tao, while some people would remain as peak of Great Freedom Heaven for eternity. For example, Great Freedom Heaven already possessed Yi Shiwen's current strength during the Second War of Resistance against the Heavens. He was even stronger than Yi Shiwen. However, after countless years, he was still only a peak of Great Freedom Heaven. At most, he was a more tyrannical peak of Great Freedom Heaven. Except for a few emperors who were invincible all the way, sweeping all opponents, and finally attaining Tao, the other emperors attaining Tao seemed to have a bit of luck in their eyes. Therefore, it was difficult to say who would be able to attain Tao. At most, people were optimistic that they would have the potential to become emperor. However, this old devil was not only optimistic about Yi Shiwen. He was simply convinced that Yi Shiwen would be able to attain Tao and become emperor. Otherwise, his early investment would be considered as a waste. Thus, everyone was in an uproar. This was the old devil's bet. However, no one dared to question his decision, especially the experts of the original demon clan. This was because this old demon had an extraordinary identity and an extremely high background. Back then, there were 10 great demon generals under the command of the original demon king, and he was one of them. Aina, although he could only be regarded as the weakest among the 10 great demon generals back then, after the 10 great demon generals successively died in battle, he was the only remaining elder. In the entire demon world, not to mention the original demon clan, even if the other demon clans were included, there were very few who could compare to him in terms of seniority, let alone those who were older than him. After all, the original demon clan had the longest history among the 8 royal clans. In addition, he was one of the most senior members of the original demon clan. It was conceivable how high his status was in the demon world. Yi Shiwen quickly recognized Aina's identity. After all, as the only remaining elder of the original demon clan, he had also read many records about the original demon clan after going against the original demon clan. In this regard, whether it was the ancient heavenly court or the martial arts sect, there were very detailed records because of the long-term war between the 3 races. Senior, you really have confidence in me, but aren't you afraid that I will really turn against you after attaining Tao one day? Yi Shiwen suddenly asked. Will you? A smile appeared on Aina's old face. Throughout the ages there were all kinds of emperors. Some were cruel, and some were cunning, but there was no one who would lie against their will. That was because, first of all, there was no need to deceive an invincible character who had reached that level. Who would need to be deceived by someone of that level? Not even one. Besides, the masters who had cultivated to that level all acted according to their will, so they often did amazing things. However, if they went against their promises, it would seriously affect their Tao. They would never make promises easily, but once they made a promise, they would definitely keep it. Yi Shiwen pondered slightly and said, Okay, I agree. If I achieve Tao one day, I will definitely return the demon character. Yi Shiwen naturally had his own reasons for agreeing. The devil character had many benefits, but it would come to an end if he truly attained the Tao one day. After all, the Tao he had chosen wasn't the devil Tao. The devil Tao was just one of the Tao he had used as a reference. Although the devil character still possessed formidable might, but the might that the devil character could display wouldn't be as frightening as it seemed now given the strength of an emperor-level expert. Of course, before that, Yi Shiwen would still try his best to analyze all the secrets of the demon character with the mysterious space. At that time, the demon character would only mean this much to him, provided that he could really reach that level one day. Everyone was in an uproar again. Yi Shiwen actually agreed. The tacit understanding between the 2 sides was unexpected. What was even more unexpected was that Yi Shiwen seemed to be too confident in himself. He also felt that he could certainly achieve the Supreme Emperor Tao. He began to collect divine materials that could be used to cast Tao tools so early. In fact, many emperors were still searching for divine materials that could be used to cast Tao tools even after they became emperors. It could be seen how difficult it was. Yi Shiwen began to collect divine materials that could be used to cast Tao tools now. It could be said that he was far-sighted, but it could also be said that he was overestimating himself. Different people would naturally have different opinions about it. This is a portion of initial water. If you want to cast Tao tools, you will definitely need it, said the old demon. Initial water? The original demon clan really has a strong foundation. They even have initial water left, someone said. Yi Shiwen was also slightly moved. Every Tao artifact was completely different, and the divine materials used were also completely different. However, there was one that all of them had to use, and that was the initial water. Only with the initial water could these supreme divine materials be gathered together. Moreover, only water like the initial water, which had been born since the creation of the world, could fuse with the way of imperial monarchs. Due to how important the Genesis water was and the fact that every Tao artifact required the Genesis water, powerful imperial monarchs were constantly extracting it. Thus, the Genesis water was becoming increasingly rare. It was said that in order to forge his own Tao artifact, the Qin Emperor had entered the primal chaos space several times. He had searched for over 1,000 years before finally finding a single portion of the Genesis water. And now, with this portion of initial water, Yi Shiwen could save a lot of effort. Aina was indeed very sincere. The pure initial water in Aina's hand flew into Yi Shiwen's hand. Immediately, Aina said, In addition to the initial water, there is also a light raw stone. You should also be able to use it. He flipped his palm, and a light raw stone that was blooming with dazzling light like a small sun appeared in his hand. The strong power of light that was blooming was completely incompatible with the demonic aura in the demon domain. They were mutually canceling out and devouring each other. Yi Shiwen understood that Aina probably had no use for this. Otherwise, she would not have directly handed it over. After all, they were pure demons, not like Lucifer, who had a pure light physique. Later on, he changed to cultivate the techniques of the demon race, and finally became a demon physique. They had no use for such a pure light raw stone. But even so, with the addition of the initial water, it was still very precious to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had obtained 2 sets of precious divine materials. In addition to the 2 divine materials he had obtained in the central great realm, it could be said that he had gained a bountiful harvest. The value of any one of these divine materials could no longer be measured with a specific price. They were simply priceless treasures. After receiving these 2 divine materials, Yi Shiwen was very straightforward. He did not stop at all and directly left the original demon clan. At this time, many people finally reacted, and there was an uproar. They did not expect that Yi Shiwen would really dare to go deep into the emperor's inheritance, and actually extorted the divine materials that could be used to forge Dao tools. In order to settle the grievances with Yi Shiwen, the original demon clan could be said to have bled a lot. Many experts of the original demon clan also doubted whether it was worth it to pay such a huge price to settle the grievances with Yi Shiwen. If Yi Shiwen could become an emperor in the future, then everything he had done would naturally be very worthwhile. In fact, he would even have foresight. On the other hand, if Yi Shiwen couldn't prove his Dao in the future, then he would suffer some losses. But it wouldn't be too much of a loss. Even if Yi Shiwen could not prove his Dao, he would definitely become one of the strongest in the future. It was probably not a good thing to be stared at by such a peerless master. It could only be said that they had chosen the wrong position from the beginning, and now they had no choice but to pay for the mistakes they had made in the past. After leaving this place, Yi Shiwen directly entered the territory of the Hidden Demon Clan. As one of the most powerful assassin clans in the world, the lair of the Hidden Demon Clan was also very mysterious. Only a few people knew about it apart from the members of the Hidden Demon Clan. However, this could not be hidden from Yi Shiwen, and he quickly found it. It was a desolate deep mountain, and there were hills everywhere. Every hill was not too high, but it faintly formed a huge array. Every hill was a node, and it was very impressive. Yi Shiwen's arrival quickly attracted the wrath of the entire Hidden Demon Clan. Not only had Yi Shiwen dared to come to their door, but he had also directly exposed their lair because he had come with great fanfare, and there was no need to hide anymore. Chapter 2867. The Hidden Devil Clan had been one of the 8 royal clans of the Devil World for many years. Many people were afraid of them. However, they also had enemies all over the world. The 8 royal clans didn't have an Emperor King's inheritance, so their assassinations were the best in the world. Most importantly, their whereabouts were secretive. Ordinary people couldn't find them. Now Yi Shiwen had casually exposed them. How could they endure this? Not only in the Devil World, but there were also many people who were watching Yi Shiwen's actions in the whole world. This time they were completely exposed. Although a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows, and this wasn't the only one they had. Even their clansmen didn't know much about the real secret lair. Even so, having these assassins exposed to the eyes of the various races still made them very angry. Yi Shiwen, why have you come here? An angry roar came from inside. Don't you know why I've come? Don't play dumb. Yi Shiwen said faintly, when I was a divine king, I was robbed and killed by you once, not to mention that a quasi-emperor was robbed and killed by you again. Do you really think that this matter is over? The experts of various clans who were paying attention to this scene instantly went into an uproar. They hadn't expected that the enmity between Yi Shiwen and the Hidden Devil clan had started even earlier. The Divine King Tribulation and the Quasi-Emperor Tribulation that had tried to kill Yi Shiwen were simply irreconcilable. No wonder Yi Shiwen had come here immediately. Yi Shiwen, do you really think that you can do whatever you want? The experts of the Hidden Devil clan were very angry. They were even angrier and crazier than the experts of the original Devil clan. Are you trying to scare me? However, I'm afraid that it won't be enough for you. Yi Shiwen said coldly, I heard that you have a heavenly tablet of assassins. Your ancestor had confirmed his Tao by looking at the heavenly tablet of assassins. I also want to borrow it. What do you think? What? You're crazy. Many experts of the Hidden Devil clan were furious. They couldn't restrain their anger. The killer heavenly steel was the foundation of the Hidden Devil clan. It was also the object that the Hidden Devil clan's old ancestor had used to prove his Tao. It contained countless martial arts of the killing Tao. Its origin was mysterious. It was said that it might have been transformed from the Xiantian ancient character, the kill character. It was very important for the Hidden Devil clan. It was almost equivalent to the Dragon Island's ancestral Dragon Tao lecture diagram. Its significance to the Dragon Island was not something that outsiders could imagine. Yi Shiwen's words were tantamount to digging out their foundation. One could well imagine how angry they would be. So what if that's the case? I'd like to see just what makes you so arrogant. Yi Shiwen sneered. It was different from the time when he had faced the original Devil clan. The Hidden Devil clan had tried to assassinate him again and again. So, he had been suppressing his anger for a long time. He and the Hidden Devil clan hadn't had any grudges at that time. However, he had been targeted and assassinated. She had almost caused him to fail at the last moment and die tragically. This debt naturally couldn't be easily forgotten. Boy, it's not too late if you leave now. There's nothing here that's worthy of your nostalgia. We won't leave you even if there are divine materials. An indifferent voice came from the Hidden Devil clan and said. The Hidden Devil clan was very tough in the face of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had come to their door and slapped them in the face. So, they wouldn't leave this matter at that. You're not willing to hand over the killer heavenly steel. But, it's fine if you hand over a divine material. Otherwise, this matter won't end so easily. I must flatten your Hidden Devil clan today. Yi Shiwen said. You've dared to attack in the face of fighting against the heavens, the indifferent voice said in an ice-cold voice. However, it contained an incomparable anger. Everyone could hear it. Why didn't you consider the overall situation of fighting against the heavens when you attacked me when I was crossing the tribulation? Don't you think it's a little too late to talk to me about this now? Yi Shiwen coldly said. You don't have divine materials. The indifferent voice became even more indifferent. You don't have them? I'll go in and take a look myself. Yi Shiwen took a step forward. He wanted to go into the depths of the Hidden Devil clan's lair. Suddenly, the killing formation that was located in the entire lair of the Hidden Devil clan flared up. Even the heaven and earth began to shake when the killing formation flared up. Only endless murderous aura was left in the endless space. All the martial arts had disappeared. Only the murderous path had prevailed. Young man, you're too arrogant. Do you think that you can come and go as you please? Even an Emperor Lord can't act so arrogantly here. A loud roar came from inside. The killing formation gradually started to operate. Then, the power of countless murderous paths boiled and swept away. The time robe on Yi Shiwen's body flared up. The colorful time energy began to crazily spew out the power of time. It resisted the power of the murderous path. Even an Emperor Lord can't? That's ridiculous. Watch me break your great formation. Yi Shiwen said as he took a step forward. He then killed his way into the center of the killing formation. Countless murderous auras began to condense in an instant. They began to transform. The sound of kill filled the sky. Countless figures appeared one after another. All of them were transformed from the murderous path. They rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. Bang! Yi Shiwen didn't know how many murderous path figures he had smashed with one punch. He also didn't know how many people he had defeated. He was like a tireless machine. He was constantly slaughtering. However, those murderous path figures seemed endless. They didn't stop at all. Humph, Yi Shiwen, this killing formation is condensed from countless years of accumulated murderous auras. I'd like to see how long you can persist. Even if you have a Dao tool to protect yourself, I'd like to see how many Emperor Source you have to activate it. The indifferent voice inside continued to roar. Yi Shiwen sneered. You want to baffle me with such an insignificant skill? The Avicii sword appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand. Since it had been exposed in front of everyone, he didn't care anymore. The Avicii sword suddenly swayed. A shocking blood-red sword light swept across the sky. A sword chi pierced through the sky and directly penetrated the killing formation. The entire killing formation shook violently. Under the sword light of the Avicii sword, a violent demon emperor appeared. This endless murderous path didn't affect the Avicii sword at all. In fact, it even increased its power. Because the Avicii sword itself was a sword of murderous path, these murderous auras were like a great tonic for it. Yi Shiwen didn't need to activate the Emperor Source at all. He just needed to constantly absorb these murderous auras to sweep through the formation. Boom! 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 Yi Shiwen's sword slashed down again and again. The sky shook and the earth shook. There was no power that could stop Yi Shiwen's sword light. It constantly collapsed in front of everyone. No one knew who set up that huge killing formation. It could even restrict the power of the Emperor King level. This was not an exaggeration. However, in front of Yi Shiwen, it had no power to fight back at all. The Avicii sword with full force was shockingly powerful. The power of the Avicii sword has increased again. How can this be? How long has it been? Someone realized that the power of the Avicii sword seemed to have increased. Seeing this scene, the experts of the Celestial Clan couldn't wait to break their teeth. They were very clear that the reason why the power of the Avicii sword was increasing day by day was obviously because it had devoured the Tianqi Emperor sword. Moreover, it was constantly digesting it. As time passed, its strength would become stronger and stronger. It could even surpass ordinary Dao tools. And all this was caused by the sacrifice of the Celestial Clan. Thinking of this, they couldn't help but be furious. They couldn't wait to tear Yi Shiwen into pieces. Not to mention that Yi Shiwen ran to their core area and caused a scene. He had directly snatched 2 divine materials and killed 2 of their experts. His hatred was as deep as the sea. There was no way to resolve it. However, there was no way. Yi Shiwen's strength was too strong. They couldn't do anything about it. He had attacked alone, and he had taken the initiative. The Avicii sword in Yi Shiwen's hand had indeed become stronger. The tool spirit of the Avicii sword was also constantly digesting the Tianqi Emperor sword. It was another Dao tool. The benefits of devouring the Tianqi Emperor sword could be imagined. It was not something that ordinary people could imagine. Soon, the entire killing formation was pierced by the Avicii sword. The terrifying killing formation that was originally known to be able to restrict the Emperor King had become a complete joke in front of Yi Shiwen's Avicii sword. Even the experts of the Hidden Demon Clan were a little dumbfounded at this moment. They were very confident in their killing formation. It was known to be able to restrict the Emperor King. However, in the end, not to mention the Emperor King, even Yi Shiwen had almost destroyed their killing formation. This killing formation couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen at all. They were also very helpless. No, we can't let him continue like this. Otherwise, it will be terrible. Many experts of the Hidden Demon Clan suddenly reacted. However, when everyone was staring at Yi Shiwen, they suddenly saw a figure suddenly appear behind Yi Shiwen. That astonishing cold light streaked across the sky and pierced through Yi Shiwen's body. It was unknown what kind of weapon that cold light was, but it instantly pierced in front of Yi Shiwen. Fast, fast, fast. The speed of this attack was really too fast. In fact, everyone didn't even notice when he had attacked. At this moment, a loud and crisp sound was heard. The attack had hit its target directly. Yi Shiwen's body erupted with a burst of 7-colored divine radiance, dazzling and dazzling. Yi Shiwen also reacted in an instant. Go to hell. This trick again. You want to plot against me? You still have a long way to go. Yi Shiwen's palm directly covered over, directly sweeping that figure. Bang! Chapter 2868. To be able to sneak up to Yi Shiwen's side without being detected by him, this was absolutely impossible. Yi Shiwen's own divine sense was revolving around him, not to mention in this space. Even if it was in the secondary plane, it would still be difficult to escape the locking of his soul. Not to mention the fact that there was a Tao tool like the time robe, which could attack and defend at the same time. Anyone who approached him would be detected by the time robe. However, this person still managed to do it. Even Yi Shiwen didn't expect it. However, Yi Shiwen's reaction was faster. His devil wings instantly manifested, and his palm covered that figure. That figure obviously didn't expect Yi Shiwen's reaction speed to be so fast. Even though he had already planned to escape thousands of miles away if his attack failed, and his reaction speed was very fast, he was still hit by Yi Shiwen's palm. Bang! This figure was hit by Yi Shiwen on the spot. There was a huge explosion on the spot, and this figure was sent flying thousands of miles away. The sky was filled with blood mist. Everyone looked over and saw that the figure could no longer be hidden. It was a young demon of the Hidden Devil clan. However, half of his body had already been smashed to pieces. Everyone couldn't help but suck in a mouthful of cold air. Yi Shiwen had only grazed them a little bit, but half of their bodies had already been smashed. If their whole bodies had been swept away, then that would have been terrible. It was simply courting death. Everyone felt goosebumps all over their bodies. It was simply too terrifying and frightening to look at. In particular, some people recognized that this young demon was a famous ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan. He had completely entered the peak of the Quasi-Emperor realm. His assassination technique was a headache even for people like Mahasvara. After all, one could only be a thief for 1,000 days. How could one guard against a thief for 1,000 days? His assassination strength could be said to have reached the peak. However, half of his body had been smashed by Yi Shiwen. Such an outcome was terrifying to look at. Even if the physical cultivation of the assassination technique was indeed weak, he was still a peak of the Quasi-Emperor realm. However, he wasn't a match for Yi Shiwen at all. The terrifying strength of Yi Shiwen's hand was fully highlighted at this time. Many people were thinking about how terrible it would be if this slap landed on their bodies. Damn it! How could this be? The old ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan couldn't help but roar. More than half of his body had been destroyed on the spot. His body wasn't very strong, but it was only as strong as an expert of the same realm. So, how could it be destroyed so easily? What kind of monster is this? At this time, he looked at Yi Shiwen as if he was looking at a monster in human skin. In fact, he was indeed thinking like this at this time. Yi Shiwen was indeed a monster in human skin. Did he want to live or not? Initially, he didn't care about the many rumors about Yi Shiwen. After all, Yi Shiwen was just a junior who had cultivated for thousands of years. How powerful could he be? As long as the timing was right, he would even dare to kill the Mahasvara in front of the world, let alone a junior. There was nothing to be afraid of. However, Yi Shiwen's attack almost made him despair. Yi Shiwen's attack had almost killed him. At this time, Yi Shiwen suddenly moved. His body suddenly crossed the sky and instantly rushed in front of him, overturning the heaven's seal. Yi Shiwen's big hand suddenly turned over. The power of the world seemed to have transformed into a huge seal in an instant, and all of it condensed in it. Bang! The old ancestor of the hidden devil clan didn't have enough time to dodge. He was hit on the spot and his body exploded. Divine radiance splashed in all directions. He was seriously injured, and an ancient character almost flew out from his body. That's the hidden character. Yi Shiwen's eyes were sharp. He saw it almost immediately. This was another innate ancient character. It was also the root of the hidden devil clan's survival. It was a bit like the original devil clan's devil character. Of course, compared to the word devil of the original demon tribe, the word hidden was still a little inferior. Perhaps it couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. However, the power it could display when used in the assassination Dao was almost comparable to the word devil. Yi Shiwen instantly understood. It was no wonder that the hidden devil clan could get close to him without being discovered. It was impossible under normal circumstances. However, he had done it. It turned out that he had relied on this hidden character to hide all the information of the heavens. So, Yi Shiwen hadn't noticed him. It was no wonder that the hidden devil clan claimed to even dare to kill a peak quasi-emperor. With the hidden character as their foundation, there was really nothing they wouldn't dare to do. However, their strength would be much weaker if they were to fight head-on. The old ancestor of the hidden devil clan, who had been smashed into pieces by Yi Shiwen, suddenly disappeared. He had vanished into thin air. Everyone finally heaved a sigh of relief. It was simply unimaginable that a peak quasi-emperor had almost died in such a short exchange. Many of them hadn't seen Yi Shiwen kill his way into the central world with their own eyes. They had thought that it was just a rumor. However, they now believed that Yi Shiwen might really have the ability to kill a peak quasi-emperor. Even a peak quasi-emperor who didn't have sufficient combat strength was not something that ordinary people could imagine. The demon wings on Yi Shiwen's back spread open. The time robe on his body exuded 7 colored rays of light. It made him look like a god who had awakened from an eternal slumber. He looked sacred and inviolable. Whoosh! The demon wings on Yi Shiwen's back suddenly flapped, and his entire body flew out. The golden rays on his body tore open the space like precious swords, and strangled everything cleanly. Boom! A huge explosion sound was heard, and the void trembled crazily. A huge crack suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Then, the old ancestor of the hidden devil clan appeared in front of them. He had just reassembled his body. His face still had a startled and angry expression on it. He hadn't expected that Yi Shiwen would be able to chase him to this place. Overturning the heavens seal. Yi Shiwen used the overturning the heavens seal once again. The entire crack in the space was stirred up, and endless divine rays were released in an instant. Bang! The old ancestor of the hidden devil clan didn't have enough time to react. He was bombarded once again, and fell into the primal chaos. His body tore the primal chaos apart, and countless cracks appeared in it. Just so, Yi Shiwen sneered. The most difficult thing to deal with was that it was impossible to guard against these assassins. They could appear and disappear unpredictably. However, they were nothing as long as one could catch them. Especially, the speed that they were so proud of was nothing in front of Yi Shiwen. Therefore, they couldn't deal with Yi Shiwen at all. Their weaknesses were as obvious as their strength. Once they were restricted by others, it was tantamount to death. Therefore, they often didn't attack easily. They would kill with one strike if they attacked. Otherwise, they would flee thousands of miles away. It was a pity that they had encountered Yi Shiwen. Their advantages were nothing in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen heard an old voice just as he was about to attack again. It said, "Stop, Yi Shiwen. We agree to your request." Yi Shiwen retracted his magical power as he heard this. He returned to his ordinary state. He looked no different from an ordinary human being from afar. The old ancestor of the hidden devil clan had escaped a calamity. He was looking at Yi Shiwen with a frightened and angry look on his face. His expression was extremely resentful. He had almost died in Yi Shiwen's hands. Yi Shiwen would have died if Yi Shiwen hadn't stopped at the last moment. He wouldn't have been able to reverse this process even if he had brought death to countless people. An old man dressed in a black robe slowly walked out as soon as this voice fell. He looked like an ordinary human old man at this time. In fact, he wasn't even dressed like an ordinary devil. However, he gave Yi Shiwen a huge pressure. He had a kind of power that ordinary people couldn't even imagine. He was a dreadful and invincible expert. Yi Shiwen might have been unable to escape from his hands if he didn't have the time robe. However, the deterrence that this old man gave him was much smaller because he had the time robe. The way of assassination was nothing for him as long as he didn't get killed in a second. The old ancestor of the hidden devil clan, Yi Shiwen slowly opened his mouth and said, "This was the real old ancestor of the hidden devil clan. There were many legends about him in the devil race. It was rumored that he was born with the word hidden in his heart. He was a natural assassin. He had established a huge foundation in a short period of time. Later, he had turned the hidden devil clan into one of the royal clans in countless years. It was the same as the fallen angel clan. It was one of the 8 royal clans. It was a tyrannical force that didn't have an emperor. However, it was still able to dominate the entire devil race even though it didn't have an emperor among the 8 royal clans. Since ancient times, no one had dared to underestimate the strength of the Enemo ancestor, who had single-handedly facilitated this matter. In the second battle against the heavens, there was even an example of the Enemo ancestor assassinating the Tian clan's emperor. Although he failed in the end, he was still able to escape from the furious pursuit of the Tian clan's emperor and escape unscathed. One could imagine how tyrannical the Enemo ancestor was. Countless years had passed. So, no one knew how tyrannical he had become. That's right. It's me. The new generation surpasses the old. I didn't expect that such an outstanding inheritance would appear in the human race after the Qin emperor. The human race is really a race blessed by the heavens. The old ancestor of the hidden devil clan couldn't help but sigh. There are many ordinary people in the human race. However, their achievements are also rare in the world. Chapter 2869. The words of the old ancestor of the hidden devil sect also resonated with many masters. Indeed, relatively speaking, the human race, which had a large number of ordinary individuals, was pitifully weak, and there was no such thing as innate magic power. From all aspects, it should be a weak race that could not be supplemented. However, such a race had repeatedly produced powerful masters, and could even produce powerful emperors. In addition to some powerful bloodlines, they also had ordinary bodies that ordinary people could not imagine to reach the peak. The legendary emperor of Qin had a mortal body, and Yi Shiwen didn't have any special bloodline. Although his body was incomparably tyrannical, but everyone had already investigated and found out that Yi Shiwen had obtained a body-refining power technique in his early years, and he himself didn't have a tyrannical bloodline. However, Yi Shiwen was able to do things that many descendants of powerful bloodlines couldn't do. He had fought all the way to this point. He had left his competitors far behind. This was simply too shocking. Friend Yi, our hidden devil clan is willing to reconcile with you. We will resolve the grievances between us. We will write it off from now on. We don't owe each other anything. How about it? The old ancestor of the hidden devil clan looked at Yi Shiwen and said. The aura on his body didn't spread. It was very gentle. However, Everyone who knew the identity of the old ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan and his past didn't dare to look down on him because of his amiable expression. The old ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan had killed many tyrannical existences in the past. He had slaughtered many civilians. His hands were stained with blood. He was definitely a cruel and merciless person. The fundamental reason why he was treating Yi Shiwen in such a pleasant manner was that Yi Shiwen's formidable strength had made him look at Yi Shiwen with a whole new level of respect and fear. Otherwise, as a powerful patriarch, how could he compromise with Yi Shiwen? It was already good enough that he hadn't chased Yi Shiwen to death. Yi Shiwen was also a little afraid of the old ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan. He nodded and said, "Well, I will forget about this matter as long as you hand over a divine material. Well, we won't go back on our words as long as friend Yi keeps his word." The old ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan couldn't help but say, "However, I have another condition," Yi Shiwen said. "What condition?" The old ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan couldn't help but frown and said, "I want to comprehend the word hidden for a while." Yi Shiwen said lightly, "What? That won't do." The old ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan replied without any hesitation. The word hidden was not only very important, but it also contained many secrets of the Hidden Devil clan. In fact, many secret techniques of the Hidden Devil clan had been deduced from it. Yi Shiwen would be able to deduce the martial arts of the Hidden Devil clan very quickly if he were to obtain this hidden character. Yi Shiwen wouldn't be afraid of the Hidden Devil clan then. In fact, the Hidden Devil clan wouldn't even have the opportunity to threaten him. In Yi Shiwen's eyes, no matter what kind of means they used, it would be too difficult for them to gain a foothold. At the very least, they would be completely useless when it came to assassinating Yi Shiwen. "I just want to borrow it for a while. Why are you so stingy?" Yi Shiwen said with a faint smile. "I just want to comprehend some hidden killer Dao. It won't cause too much trouble for you." This additional condition is also to settle the enmity of his sudden assassination. Fortunately, he hasn't succeeded yet. Otherwise, do you think that I would only ask for such a small thing? Yi Shiwen's words made the old ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan hesitate all of a sudden. If Yi Shiwen really saw the word hidden, then the probability of being discovered would be very high. How could he be willing? However, looking at Yi Shiwen's aggressive attitude, he understood that Yi Shiwen might retreat now if he refused. However, it was likely to be a huge trouble in the future. Moreover, he had already heard about the original demon clan's Aina bowing to Yi Shiwen. Suddenly, he understood why Aina bowed to Yi Shiwen. If it was just a person who was similar to them, then the loss would naturally outweigh the gain. However, if it was a future supreme, then everything would be worth it. "Okay, I agree, but you only have 10 days. After 10 days, I will take back the word hidden." The old ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan gritted his teeth and said. At this time, he was extremely resentful. Without Dao, there was no way to deal with Yi Shiwen. If Yi Shiwen had Dao at this time, then he would be the killer emperor. Who would dare to stand in front of him and shout at him? Yi Shiwen rubbed his chin and said, "Only 10 days? Okay, 10 days it is." Hearing Yi Shiwen's agreement, the old ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. There were only 2 days. However, what he didn't know was that there was a mysterious space in Yi Shiwen's body. His plan was doomed to fail. Most importantly, Yi Shiwen didn't intend to peek at the Hidden Devil clan's killing Dao. At most, it was just a little reference. It was impossible for him to study in depth. Okay, if that's the case, then it's the best. You are a straightforward person. The old ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan gritted his teeth and nodded. He said, "Apart from the word hidden, this is a piece of chaotic heavenly jade. I found it in the chaos. It should be enough." The old ancestor of the Hidden Devil clan turned over his palm, and a piece of gray jade exuding chaotic chi appeared in his hand. As he removed his control over it, countless chaotic chi instantly swept out. Chaotic Heavenly Jade. I didn't expect the Hidden Devil Clan to have such a supreme divine material. It is said that the Earth Emperor Shenong used chaotic heavenly jade as the main material when he refined the Shenong cauldron in the past. This chaotic heavenly jade has the effect of returning everything to chaos. It's very magical. If it's used for alchemy, it can even fuse all the materials together. It's too precious. Some knowledgeable people recognized it at once. In particular, it had the gimmick that the Earth Emperor Shenong had used in the past. This made countless people cast sidelong glances at it. Yi Shiwen grabbed the primal chaos heavenly jade, and he suddenly felt as if an innumerable amount of primal chaos energy had surged into his body and cleansed his body. It was incomparably mystical. He was alone in the primal chaos. Therefore, he had the ability to transform everything into primal chaos, and the effect of casting it into a medicinal cauldron would be even more mystical. Everything in the world had evolved from chaos, so one had to investigate the origin of chaos. Therefore, medicinal herbs and divine materials could be fused in it regardless of their properties. The Shenong cauldron had played a significant role in the rumor that the Earth Emperor Shenong had tasted hundreds of herbs, and the chaotic heavenly jade had obviously played a major role in that. Yi Shiwen was very satisfied with this divine material. He had a vague idea of what kind of Tao tool he would forge in the future with the chaotic heavenly jade. Perhaps he would have to make a trip to the Fire Cloud Cave even if he didn't have enough chaotic heavenly jade. After all, there might be other chaotic heavenly jades there. However, he would have to wait for that day to come. But that day was still a little far away now. Thank you very much. Yi Shiwen received the hidden character that had flown over. Then, he sat down cross-legged in the sky, and began to comprehend this hidden character on the spot. A 7-colored ray of light was faintly emitted behind him. It had completely covered the entire sky. The power of time had distorted everything. Even a person with remarkable abilities wouldn't be able to see what was happening inside. Therefore, it didn't matter where he was going to undergo closed-door training because of this. Time was precious. He only had 10 days. So, it was better to stay outside rather than entering the Hidden Devil Clan to undergo closed-door training. It was much safer. Yi Shiwen had entered into a state of closed-door training, and everyone started to discuss spiritedly. Yi Shiwen has actually succeeded. 2 of the 8 royal families have actually bowed down to him. How strong is Yi Shiwen? That's right. How many royal families will fall into his hands next? I don't know about this. It's hard to say. It's said that he has a good relationship with the Azura clan. So, the Azura clan shouldn't have taken action against him. The situation was so chaotic at that time. So, the experts of the Azura clan might not have been the experts of their clan even if they had appeared. They might have been possessed by someone else. But only Yi Shiwen knows how he managed to distinguish them. But it seems that he hasn't made a mistake in his judgment so far. It wasn't known when the old ancestor of the Hidden Devil Clan had hidden in the void. He had disappeared without a trace. The remaining experts of the Hidden Devil Clan emerged one after another. However, they looked humiliated. They had allowed Yi Shiwen to make them bow down to him. This was undoubtedly a great humiliation for them. However, this was the decision made by the old ancestor of the Hidden Devil Clan. So, what could they do? There was no way to oppose it. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye amidst this heated discussion. The word hidden seemed to have grown eyes and gained spiritual wisdom the moment the time was up. It flew out of that mass of 7-colored light. It didn't stay there for even a moment. The mass of 7-colored light dissipated after a long time. However, everyone was surprised to find that Yi Shiwen had disappeared. In fact, he couldn't be found at all. How is this possible? Where did he go? Many people were dumbstruck. One must know that they couldn't use their divine senses to explore the area where Yi Shiwen was doing closed-door training. However, they had always surrounded the area with their divine senses. In fact, there were at least hundreds or thousands of divine senses. So, how could Yi Shiwen disappear right under their noses? A sigh came from the hidden devil clan when everyone was extremely surprised. They couldn't figure out what was going on. It was the old ancestor of the hidden devil clan. Friend Ye's talent in the way of assassination is really shocking. It's unprecedented. Even I feel ashamed of my inferiority. It's a pity that you're not a member of my hidden devil clan. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind giving you the word hidden. Chapter 2870. Everyone now knew that Yi Shiwen had used the stealth killing technique to disappear. However, everyone was still extremely shocked in their hearts. What has he absorbed from the word stealth in such a short period of time? He was able to disappear under everyone's noses without leaking any aura. Obviously, he has already comprehended the word stealth to an astonishing degree. And all of this only took 10 days. How did he do it? Many people couldn't imagine it. Even the strongest genius in history shouldn't be able to do it in such a short period of time. It's really shocking. It's not even enough time for them to take a nap. But he has already comprehended it to this extent. It's no wonder that the old ancestor of the hidden devil clan said that his talent is unprecedented. It's not an exaggeration to have such an evaluation. Seeing this scene, the great experts of the heavenly clans started to curse one after another. This is outrageous. The hidden devil clan is one of the 8 royal clans of the devil world. But they don't have the strength of character. They have already lowered their heads. But they have actually handed over the word stealth for Yi Shiwen to comprehend. He was already very difficult to deal with, and it's even more difficult to deal with him now. It's unknown how many years it would take to find him. Yi Shiwen had already left the ancestral land of the hidden devil clan while they were still in shock. He had crazily operated the mysterious space in these 10 days, and began to analyze the word stealth. It had only been 10 days. However, he had enough Emperor source to support him. So, he had still analyzed many mysteries of the word stealth. Suddenly, his cultivation in the stealth-killing technique had advanced by leaps and bounds. So, it was more than enough for him to switch to the assassination technique now. Especially, he had cultivated to this level. Many things could be comprehended by analogy. So, he could easily reach a certain level. This was how it was like to understand one thing and understand 100 things. Another emperor's inheritance has lowered its head to him. More and more people received this news. They continued to move forward. They either flattened them or forced them to lower their heads. Yi Shiwen's strength made people tremble. Such an incident was rarely seen since ancient times. Oh my God! It was the original devil clan before. And it's the hidden devil clan now. Is Yi Shiwen really that difficult to deal with? Even the emperor's inheritance has no choice but to bow down to him? The world was in an uproar. The precedent of the original devil clan had already been set in stone. However, the hidden devil clan had also bowed down to Yi Shiwen. So, everyone was in an uproar. The hidden devil clan wasn't an emperor monarch's inheritance. However, everyone recognized that they were very difficult to deal with. In fact, they might be even more difficult to deal with than an ordinary emperor monarch's inheritance. Yi Shiwen's strength had left many people aghast. They were thoroughly shocked. In the following month, Yi Shiwen paid a visit to 5 emperor inheritances, as well as more than 20 famous kings' sect of various sizes. These powerful inheritances had no choice but to hand over a considerable amount of compensation under Yi Shiwen's coercion. He had received 7 types of divine materials that could be used to cast Dao tools. Not to mention, there were countless other emperor source and so on. Yi Shiwen could be said to be as rich as a country. It was unknown how many people were envious and jealous of him. This boundless wealth was enough to construct an emperor-monarch's inheritance. Moreover, it was concentrated on one person. How shocking was this wealth! Moreover, through Yi Shiwen's journey, everyone understood that there were actually so many inheritances that had secretly attacked Yi Shiwen back then. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. How many people had Yi Shiwen offended? How many people hated him for him to have such a scale? Now, all of them had to pay the price for what they had done back then. This price wasn't small. It made them feel like vomiting blood. However, Yi Shiwen was like a god of plague at this time. They couldn't afford to provoke him at all. Yi Shiwen finally returned to the secret alliance after settling the grudges between him and the various inheritances. At this time, the secret alliance also held a grand welcome ceremony for Yi Shiwen. Because of Yi Shiwen's journey, no one dared to look down on the newly established secret alliance anymore. Initially, there were some people who were unconvinced. However, they were naturally convinced now. This was because Yi Shiwen was really too powerful. They thought that it wasn't bad to follow Yi Shiwen. The more powerful Yi Shiwen was, the deeper their sense of identity with the secret alliance became. Yi Shiwen had gained a lot from this journey, especially after he plundered the Central World's treasury. Yi Shiwen had obtained a lot of resources. However, given his current cultivation, these resources couldn't be used. Apart from storing half of them in the Secret Alliance's treasury to become the foundation of the Secret Alliance, the other half was distributed on the spot. As long as it was a disciple of the Secret Alliance, they more or less received some benefit. In a short period of time, no one in the Secret Alliance had any disloyalty. Even if there were, it was only a minority. After distributing the resources, Yi Shiwen opened a forum in the Blood Sea of the Secret Valley and gave a lecture. For a while, countless disciples of the Secret Alliance came to listen to his lecture. It should be known that a super expert who could defeat a peak quasi-emperor was giving a lecture. This kind of treatment was not something that could be encountered under normal circumstances. Yi Shiwen also lamented that the Secret Alliance's strength was much weaker than the Emperor's inheritances. This was why he wanted to give them a lecture and increase their strength. Among the Emperor's inheritances, there were many quasi-emperors, not to mention peak quasi-emperors. In comparison, the Hidden King was the strongest in the entire Secret Alliance. However, he was still quite a distance away from becoming a quasi-emperor. This was because they didn't have supreme inheritances like the Emperor's inheritances. To them, after cultivating to the king-ranked realm, the path ahead had already been cut off. If they wanted to progress, they had to rely on their own experience and explore on their own. Furthermore, they weren't from the Emperor's inheritances. Therefore, it was even more impossible for a quasi-emperor to give them a lecture. They also didn't have the opportunity to read the insights of the Emperors. This was the most miserable part of their lives. Now that Yi Shiwen was giving a lecture, it was exactly what they wanted. In particular, many people had obtained a lot of resources. However, if they wanted to cultivate, it wouldn't be that fast. Now, listening to a lecture while cultivating was undoubtedly the fastest method. Yi Shiwen sat on a huge lotus seat. His body emitted boundless light like an ancient deity. To him, this was a rare opportunity to verify what he had thought and learned. He could also sort out what he had learned. Although it wasn't as earth-shattering as the Emperor's lectures, Yi Shiwen's current cultivation level could be said to have caused a heavenly phenomenon. In an instant, all the great Tao laws appeared under Yi Shiwen's control. No matter which aspect of the great Tao they cultivated, they would be able to obtain great benefits from this lecture. The great Tao that was usually incomparably difficult to comprehend or observe was now placed in front of them. One could imagine how good of an opportunity this was. The lecture lasted for a full 10 years. For a full 10 years, it could be said that the strength of the Hidden Alliance had improved by 1 rank. The vast majority of people had directly improved by 1 rank. Even if the remaining people didn't improve by 1 rank, They were already on the verge of the peak of this realm. They were only half a step away from breaking through. It wasn't only because Yi Shiwen gave them a lecture and dispelled their doubts. At the same time, it was also because of the effects of the resources that Yi Shiwen had just distributed. They could cultivate without any worries. Finally, they were able to improve further in just a short 10 years. Almost all the time, people could be seen breaking through. There were even spectacular scenes of hundreds of people crossing the tribulation at the same time. Compared to 10 years ago, the strength of the entire Hidden Valley had generally improved by 1 rank. It was completely reborn. In addition to Yi Shiwen, the Hidden Valley had finally given birth to a second quasi-emperor. That was the Hidden King. He was already a peak divine king. Coupled with Yi Shiwen's teachings and dispelling doubts over the past 10 years, and his own accumulation, he finally grinded to the edge of the quasi-emperor realm in one go. He crossed the quasi-emperor tribulation and successfully became a quasi-emperor. With Yi Shiwen protecting him, he naturally wouldn't fail. After Yi Shiwen, he became the second quasi-emperor. He was the deputy alliance leader of the Hidden Alliance. When Yi Shiwen wasn't around, he also needed to exercise the authority and responsibility of the alliance leader. After a full 10 years, Yi Shiwen also gained a lot. He had actually stepped into the peak of the early stage of the quasi-emperor realm. It was unknown how much Emperor Source was used to feed him. Ordinary people simply couldn't catch up to him. It was impossible for them to be as extravagant as him. Anyway, in the entire Hidden Alliance, apart from him, there was only one quasi-emperor, the Hidden King. Only he could use the Emperor Source. Naturally, he didn't need to be frugal. This was using resources to exchange for time. After 10 years, Yi Shiwen didn't preach anymore. He asked everyone to go back and comprehend it. He wanted to push the effect of the preaching to the maximum and improve further. Although everyone was very reluctant, they finally left. This preaching also alarmed the entire heavens. This was because the scale of the preaching was too large. This was very rare. It should be known that even the emperor-level inheritances would rarely hold such a large-scale preaching. This was a huge test for the quasi-emperor. Moreover, it would also waste a lot of the quasi-emperor's time. They didn't need to do this at all. It was also because the strength and foundation of the Hidden Alliance were too weak. Yi Shiwen had no choice but to improve his strength in this way. However, no matter how large the scale was, it was only for the members of the Hidden Alliance. They didn't have the opportunity to hear it. This made many people from other inheritances very envious. It should be known that this was not an ordinary opportunity to hear it. In these 10 years, the situation of the entire heavens didn't change much. The heavenly race and the allied forces of the various races attacked and defended each other. There were casualties on both sides. Chapter 2871. Yi Shiwen hid in the Hidden Alliance and preached for 10 years. However, in these 10 years, he was not completely oblivious to the outside world. He was very clear about the current situation. The Celestial Clan and the coalition forces were basically evenly matched. Neither side had the power to break the balance. The battle between the two sides was extremely cruel. A large number of masters died every minute and every second. These supermasters, who had been cultivated for thousands or even tens of thousands of years, were likely to die in a second of battle. The hearts of each inheritance were bleeding, but they all knew that they could not retreat at this time. Once they retreated, it was likely that they would die without a burial place. Judging from the previous 2 wars of resistance against the heavens, after each war, the major inheritances would suffer a great loss of strength. It was unknown how many masters were killed or injured. They had to quietly hide for countless years to lick their wounds and recover their strength. This time, there were no emperor-level masters participating in the war. Otherwise, the war would be even more intense and cruel. However, they had no other choice. If they did not want to kneel at the feet of the Celestial Clan, they could only use this method. Such a cruel battle was still going on. Even the Secret Alliance was no exception to this. A large number of experts had been dispatched to the front line even though Yi Shiwen had been preaching. The casualties were extremely disastrous. Fortunately, Yi Shiwen had been preaching non-stop for the past 10 years. Therefore, the strength of the Secret Alliance hadn't declined. Yi Shiwen sighed slightly after listening to the Hidden King's report on the various things that had happened in the past 10 years. He was very clear that the heavenly race hadn't launched a very powerful offensive. On the contrary, it was the allied forces of the various races that were constantly attacking. Because the two sides had completely different thoughts, the Tian clan wanted to wait until DNI was able to obtain the Tao. That way they would be able to calm the world without any effort, and at that time, their Tian clan would once again be above the common people. They themselves had powerful strength that could rival the world. Not to mention, if there was another Emperor-level master, they would really be invincible. The coalition forces of the various clans were constantly attacking in order to stop them. Even if they suffered heavy losses, they did not hesitate. Both sides had different thoughts, so they decided to adopt different strategies. But no matter what, in a situation where one side wanted to fight, heavy casualties were inevitable. Yi Shiwen sighed. Tens of thousands of experts of the Hidden Alliance had died during this period of time. It was hard to imagine that the strength of the Hidden Valley would have been severely damaged after losing so many experts. It was unknown how many years it would take for them to recover. However, the Secret Alliance's power had increased instead of decreasing. The strategy of the Allied forces was naturally not wrong. The real problem was not the Tian clan itself, but the DNI, who no longer appeared. The previous time could be said to be the best opportunity to catch him, but unfortunately, he still escaped. Fortunately, he was severely injured by Yi Shiwen again. Otherwise, perhaps he would have achieved Tao at this time, and the consequences would be unimaginable. But even so, the situation was still pressing and suffocating. No one knew when the DNI would achieve Tao. This was the most terrifying thing. What was even more terrifying was that Yi Shiwen already knew that no Emperor-level masters would return from the unknown place. There should be no powerful Emperor-level masters on the coalition forces' side. On the contrary, several Emperor-level masters of the Tian clan were sealed and exiled. These Emperor-level masters had not appeared until now. It was said that they were blocked on the other side of the seal. But if they returned, how terrifying would it be? This point, the middle and lower levels of the coalition forces, even most of the higher-ups, should not be clear. There were only a few people who knew that their Emperor-level masters would not appear. These people would not spread the news. Otherwise, once it was known by others, the coalition forces of various clans who had lost hope might collapse on the spot. After all, there were many people who sought refuge with the Tian clan since ancient times. Such people were definitely not in the minority. Yi Shiwen had been preaching about the Hidden Alliance for the past 10 years. This was also one of the reasons why Yi Shiwen had been preaching about the Hidden Alliance for the past 10 years. The real perilous waves had yet to arrive. So, he had to strengthen the Hidden Alliance as much as possible before that. Before the real battle began, every minute and second of strength improvement was very important. I understand, Senior Brother Hidden King. In the next period of time, I will be in closed-door training for a period of time. The matters of the Hidden Alliance will be handed over to you, said Yi Shiwen. Junior Brother, you still want to go into closed-door training? Asked the Hidden King curiously. Didn't he just go through the tribulation? Why was he going into closed-door training again? I have gained something in the past 10 years of preaching, so I plan to go into closed-door training again to consolidate it, said Yi Shiwen with a slight smile. At this time, the Hidden King looked as if he had seen a ghost. He was going to go into closed-door training again? He had gained something just like that. One should know that he had just broken through to the Emperor level. How long had it been, and he was going to break through again? How was he going to let anyone live? He had lived for so many years and was considered to be very knowledgeable. However, no matter how he looked at it, he was not on the same level as Yi Shiwen at all. It was so shameful that he had the urge to commit suicide. Even though he felt that he had completely overestimated Yi Shiwen, he still realized that he had completely underestimated Yi Shiwen at this time. The current Yi Shiwen was not someone that he could estimate at all. Although they were both at the initial stage of the Emperor level, he was only at the initial stage of the Emperor level. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen was able to beat a peak stage of the Emperor level. This made him feel dizzy every time he thought about it. When he was still in the Divine King realm, he did not have a deep enough understanding of this. However, after he had truly entered the Emperor level, he finally understood that the gap between Emperor level and Emperor level could be as wide as heaven and earth. The gap between every realm of the Emperor level was even greater than the gap between the initial stage of the Divine King realm and the peak stage of the Divine King realm. In his place, he could at most protect himself in the face of a middle-stage quasi-emperor expert. It was simply impossible for him to defeat them. He could only dream about Yi Shiwen beating a peak-stage quasi-emperor expert like this. It was simply impossible for him to do it in reality. However, he was extremely happy. Yi Shiwen was their alliance master. The stronger he was now, the more advantageous it would be for them. The amazement in his heart was quickly suppressed. "Alliance master, don't worry. Leave this to me," said the Hidden King. "Well, I am very relieved with senior brother keeping watch. However, if there is any emergency, inform me immediately." "I will come out immediately," said Yi Shiwen. Just as the Hidden King had guessed, Yi Shiwen was about to break through. He had broken through to the peak stage of the Emperor level in one go. It was time for him to break through to the middle stage of the Emperor level. Although he had just broken through, he had countless Emperor Source as his foundation and the mysterious space to analyze it for him. Therefore, his foundation was much stronger than the average person. Yi Shiwen did not choose the Hidden Alliance for his closed-door training. Instead, he returned directly to the Demon King's treasure house. In the Demon King's treasure house, Yi Qianqian, Yi Mo and others were still cultivating, especially Yi Mo. In order to help Yi Shiwen, he had burned a lot of the origin source. His cultivation had plummeted, and Tianyuan Mirror was also greatly damaged. It had not been able to recover in the past 10 years. This was still under the situation where there was enough Emperor Source. One could imagine how much he had paid before. Yi Qianqian also wanted to consolidate her quasi-emperor realm. Unlike Yi Shiwen, her realm was a little weak. Obviously, it was the sequela of forcibly raising her realm. Although her cultivation had skyrocketed after receiving the inheritance of the Lord of Hell, it was not something that could be done in a short period of time if she wanted to completely control this power and digest this inheritance. Under the situation where there was sufficient Emperor Source, she continued to absorb it. Although her strength did not improve in the past 10 years, her foundation was completely consolidated. It could be considered as a great harvest. "Yi Shiwen, can you give me this Emperor's corpse?" asked Yi Mo. "What do you want this Emperor's corpse for?" asked Yi Shiwen. He naturally knew that the Emperor's corpse was very precious, but it had many uses. He wanted to know what Yi Mo was planning. "I have a devouring great technique that can devour the Emperor's corpse and become a peak Emperor in the shortest time. Moreover, devouring the Emperor's great way is also very important for me. Whether it is possible to go further in the future and achieve the Great Way, it can only depend on him," said Yi Mo. "Okay, but before that, I also want to comprehend and analyze it," Yi Shiwen said without hesitation. Perhaps for others this was a precious resource. Even a strand of hair on their body was a divine material that was difficult to beg for in the outside world. However, for him, as long as Yi Mo needed it, he would devour it. However, Yi Qianqian looked at Yi Shiwen with a little surprise. Although she had long known that Yi Mo and Yi Shiwen had a very good relationship, she did not expect it to be so good that they could even casually give away the emperor's corpse. She and Yi Shiwen had gotten to know each other quite late. So, she didn't know that Yi Shiwen wouldn't have been able to reach this point if it weren't for Yi Mo. Both of them were one. So, they didn't want to be separated. Just like Yi Mo's behavior of burning his Tao for countless years, Yi Shiwen did not hesitate to fight. However, before letting Yi Mo devour, Yi Shiwen still wanted to comprehend the emperor's great way. This was an extremely rare opportunity. It was not an opportunity that could be had at any time. Also, leave some of your divine materials for me, especially the initial water. It is essential to restore Tianyuan mirror to the level of a Tao tool, said Yi Mo. As for the other divine materials that are needed, I need to go into the chaos to look for them. I am afraid it is very difficult to find them in the present world. Well, no problem. Yi Shiwen nodded. These things were not a problem at all. I will go into closed-door training for a period of time. You all help me to look after it. If there is anything, inform me in time. Got it, you go into closed-door training. Chapter 2872. The raging battle was still unfolding, never stopping. Although both sides had scruples, there was no hesitation or pause when they attacked. The cruel battle never stopped, and there were bloody battlefields everywhere. In the blink of an eye, another 50 years had passed. After these years of fighting, more and more famous experts had fallen, and even the fall of quasi-emperor level experts was no longer strange. Instead, it had become a common thing. However, there were also many new generation experts who had grown greatly in this bloody battle and stood out. Just like in the previous two War of Resistance, a large number of rising young geniuses emerged. The turbulent, chaotic world was also an excellent opportunity for geniuses to rise. It was as if the heavenly law had relaxed its control over the world, and the suppression of the heavenly law on experts had also disappeared. Many realms that could not be broken through had broken through at this time. The speed was amazing, and in a short period of time, they had cultivated to the realms that were originally unattainable. As a quasi-emperor said sorrowfully, this was a great era, a golden era forged by countless blood. The older generation naturally fell in the constant battle, and the new generation was rising. Some people even speculated that this might be the means of the heavenly law to carry out a replacement. Even though the gods were known to be immortal, the gods that had survived from ancient times to the present were still rare. No, it should be said that there were very few of them. Most of them had fallen in battle after battle, and even the emperors were no exception. According to historical records, there were no less than 20 emperors that had fallen. This was also a kind of replacement. But no matter how eye-catching these people were, for both the Heavenly Clan and the coalition forces, there were two people that could not be avoided in any case. The Heavenly Clan was naturally destined to become an emperor. It was only a matter of time before the NID became an emperor. Whether he was willing to admit it or not, he was destined to become an emperor, and he would definitely become the leader of this generation of the Heavenly Clan. In the coalition forces, although many new faces had emerged in the past few decades with amazing strength, and many powerful geniuses that were originally hidden by the coalition forces had also emerged. But everyone seemed to never be able to forget that Yi Shiwen had once forced many emperor inheritances and kings' sect to bow their heads. He traveled the world alone, but everyone was helpless. This was the impression that Yi Shiwen gave to everyone. No matter how outstanding the performance of these juniors was, it was inevitable that people would compare them with Yi Shiwen. However, they were at most ordinary god kings. Even Ji Renwang, who was known to be born to be a human king, had just cultivated to the peak god-king realm. He was left far behind by Yi Shiwen. Aside from Yi Qianqian and Yi Wudi, who had inherited the Tao, it was rare for others to even step into the god-king realm, much less the quasi-emperor realm. Therefore, Yi Shiwen could be said to be the most outstanding among these people. He was simply invincible. Those who could be mentioned in the same breath as him were old seniors who had cultivated for countless years. He was invincible among his peers. Even DNI, whom the heavenly clan had placed high hopes on, had suffered a big loss in Yi Shiwen's hands. He was defeated so badly that he almost lost his life. After being compared so many times, these geniuses naturally had opinions about Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen's strength was amazing, they did not feel that they had no hope at all. It was just that he was one step ahead of them. In particular, there was Ji Renwang, who had cultivated to the peak god-king realm and was only half a step away from the quasi-emperor realm. This made them feel that it was not impossible to catch up with Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen had entered the state of closed-door training many years ago, it did not mean that closed-door training would definitely succeed. Before achieving the Tao, momentary gains and losses were nothing at all. But in their hearts, they were still very dissatisfied with Yi Shiwen. This kind of thing where other people's children were desperately compared to them, anyone would be very annoyed. No matter what kind of results they achieved, they would be compared to Yi Shiwen, and then come to the conclusion that they were only SOSO. How could these generally arrogant geniuses accept this? It was simply too much, it was simply a slap in the face. Yi Shiwen was also a victim of this kind of other people's children in the past, but now he had become someone else's child. Both sides had many masters, but they still could not keep up with the speed of consumption. It may take thousands or even tens of thousands of years to cultivate a master, but it would only take a short moment to destroy this master. Under such circumstances, hidden masters came out one after another. Many old seniors who were thought to have died in meditation also appeared one after another. For a time, it was unknown how many people were shocked. In this chaotic situation, the entire Hidden Alliance was also developing in a low-key manner, adhering to the policy of low-key development that Yi Shiwen had mentioned before. They did not blindly get involved. At the same time, they were also digesting the resources that Yi Shiwen had brought back and preached to him. Compared to a few decades ago, the entire Hidden Alliance had promoted more than one level at the same time. Even some who had promoted faster had promoted 2 or 3 times. Of course, their realm was relatively low, so such progress was also unusual. Suddenly, the number of experts had increased by a lot. It wasn't as insufficient as before. Moreover, Yi Shiwen's previous declaration had attracted many experts, and they had come to seek refuge with him one after another. This had expanded the level of experts in the Hidden Valley in one go. Just based on these masters, Yi Shiwen had already reached the standard of a Thearcha's inheritance. It was just that his peak combat power was far from that of an ordinary Thearcha's inheritance. Apart from Yi Shiwen and the Hidden King, there was actually no other quasi-Thearch level master. Although there were a few king-ranked masters who were enlightened after listening to Yi Shiwen's lecture and broke through to the peak of the God-King realm, they were still some distance away from the 10 great God-Kings, let alone breaking through to the quasi-Thearch level. At least in a short period of time, it was absolutely impossible. This was also the Hidden Alliance's weakness. Quasi-Thearch level masters were too strong, and under normal circumstances, it was very difficult to make up for it. Under normal circumstances, it was very difficult to rope in those quasi-Thearch level masters. Most quasi-Thearch level masters came from the Thearcha's inheritance. There were exceptions, and most of them had their own sections. It was very difficult to recruit them like those God Kings. The Hidden Alliance was most worried about the heavenly race's revenge. After the initial nervousness, it did not happen in the end. It seemed like they were being held back by the allied forces of the various races, and there was no way to free up enough masters to come and take revenge. Even if ordinary masters came, they would just be food for Yi Shiwen. Therefore, it was very quiet. Everything was developing in an orderly manner. Nothing major had happened in the absence of Yi Shiwen. At this time, suddenly, a discovery in the god burial star ocean shocked both the heavenly race and the allied forces. It immediately attracted everyone's attention. The discovery of a huge battlefield had attracted countless experts to this place. The god burial star ocean was the battlefield of the previous war against the heavens. There were already big and small battlefields in it. This was not strange. However, the battlefield that was discovered this time was a super battlefield where many Thearch level masters fought. No one knew how many masters were killed or injured. The corpses of quasi-Thearch level and god kings could be seen everywhere. It was even said that there were Thearch level masters who had fallen in it. Moreover, this place was very close to the primal chaos. It was said that there were very precious divine materials scattered in it. This immediately aroused the interest of countless people. While they were confronting each other, many people rushed to this endless abyss. It was said that this abyss was created by someone with great power. It had been formed for countless years and was bottomless. Similarly, it was very dangerous and not a place that ordinary people could explore. Since the appearance of this abyss, the battlefield of confrontation and battle between the two sides had also shifted to this abyss. Fighting for wealth while fighting each other had undoubtedly become the mainstream front line of battle. Amidst such noise, a group of people quietly arrived at the edge of the abyss. If anyone could see these people in front of them, they would be shocked. Especially one of them. It was Yi Shiwen, who had disappeared for a long time. Everyone thought that he was in closed-door training. Beside him, Yi Mo, Yi Qianqian, the Hidden King and the others were also there. It was Yi Shiwen who had come out of closed-door training. After a whole 50 years, he had finally broken through to the middle stage of the quasi-emperor realm. However, he had heard about this endless abyss the moment he came out of closed-door training. It had just been discovered, but it had already become the front line of battle between the two sides. Apart from the possibility that an emperor king might have fallen, the most important thing was that everyone had already discovered a fragment of a Dao tool. There were also several divine materials that could be used to forge Dao tools. These were all discovered in the past few decades. Originally, it was impossible to obtain Dao without going deep into the primal chaos. However, it could be obtained in this endless abyss. One could imagine how it would not cause a frenzied battle. Therefore, he simply brought Yi Mo and the others out. He did not bring the divine kings with him. In this mysterious abyss, only quasi-emperors could make a difference. It would already be good if the divine kings could protect themselves. As for those below the divine king level, they would not be able to adapt to this distorted space, and would be torn into pieces by the distorted space. Apart from the Hidden King, Yi Shiwen's coming out of closed-door training did not alarm anyone else. After confirming that no one was monitoring the surroundings of the Hidden Alliance, Yi Shiwen called the Hidden King and together, they came to the endless abyss in the deepest part of the god burial star ocean. The endless abyss was a huge crevice. Endless astral winds tore through the sky around it. Ordinary gods could not enter at all, and there was no light at all. Therefore, in the past countless years, no one had discovered that there was actually a huge battlefield in this abyss. Chapter 2873. The weakest among them was at the quasi-emperor level. After activating their protective aura chi, they rushed directly into the crack. After entering the crack, the situation was completely different from the outside. It was an incomparably huge world. This was a world that originally didn't exist. However, after countless years of transformation on the battlefield, it had actually become a huge world. It was a scene of doomsday everywhere. It was gloomy, and chaos chi was wreaking havoc everywhere. In the sky of this world, there were cracks everywhere. Among these cracks, only one was connected to the god burial star ocean, while the rest were connected to the primal chaos. It was precisely because of the existence of these cracks that some chaos divine materials had fallen into this world and been discovered. As this world had evolved from a battlefield where countless people had died, it was different from a normal world. All kinds of dark adjectives could be used to describe this world. There were all kinds of decaying chi, death chi, demonic chi, and dark laws that were almost visible to the naked eye. Powerful resentful spirits and some powerful dark creatures could be seen everywhere. They were in groups, and even some mosquitoes had the strength of the Tao confirmation level. Although they weren't real gods, ordinary gods would be seriously injured if they were bitten. The chaos of the laws here had led to the emergence of some powerful creatures that were completely above the laws. Generally, it was impossible to have the strength of the Tao confirmation level if one hadn't cultivated to the Tao confirmation level. It was unknown how many shackles Yi Shiwen had broken through to defeat a god as a demigod. It was very difficult for him to achieve this. However, if he were to cultivate here, he could easily reach a shocking level. It was not impossible for him to directly rush to the combat power of a quasi-emperor. However, it was also because of the chaos of the laws that it was very difficult to prove one's Tao here, let alone continuously cultivate. If one didn't even have a Tao, how could one prove one's Tao? There were pros and cons to each, but because of this, a large number of terrifying creatures were born. It's really dangerous here. The Hidden King's expression was extremely solemn. He had never seen such a terrifying battlefield in all his years of roaming the Jianghu. What kind of joke was this? There were almost no restrictions on the rules here, and it was very likely that large numbers of quasi-emperor level creatures would appear. Although these creatures could only survive in this battlefield, they would be completely restricted by the rules once they left the battlefield, and they might even be killed. However, it was still a ghastly sight to behold. Yi Shiwen looked around. The entire battlefield was filled with the skeletons of Tao-confirming experts. They had piled up into a huge mountain of bones, exuding an astonishing aura. This battlefield was too shocking. Some people even guessed that it might be the battlefield of the final battle. It was very likely. It was just that those who had survived the Second War of Resistance against the Heavens were all tight-lipped about it and did not say anything. Naturally, no one knew about it, but it did not prevent them from guessing. It should be an ancient battlefield that was separated from the real world and drifted in the chaos for countless years. It was only recently that it was connected to a certain crack in the god burial star ocean and was finally discovered by people. Several divine tools could be seen scattered everywhere on the battlefield. Many of them were Tao-confirming level divine tools, and there were also some relatively precious divine materials. They should have all been dropped after the death of their original owners. The Hidden King collected these precious divine materials and magic tools as he walked. Although they weren't very useful to him, they were still very important to the low-level disciples of the Secret Alliance. They were of great significance to them. Yi Shiwen opened the path in front and walked all the way inside. The entire battlefield space was endless, just like many worlds pieced together. An ordinary person would not be able to reach the end even if they walked for a lifetime. However, with Yi Shiwen's cultivation, he directly swept in. Some places that were forbidden to ordinary people were directly swept by him, and the forbidden areas were flattened. There was no need to dodge at all. The entire battlefield is too big. I didn't expect there to be such a battlefield. The Hidden King could not help but sigh. Yi Mo's expression was slightly silent. Yi Shiwen saw it and transmitted his voice to Yi Mo. Could it be that the Demon King has fallen here? Yi Shiwen asked the doubt in his heart. It was also a shocking guess. He only knew that the Demon King had fallen, but Yemo was tight-lipped about where he had fallen. He did not mention it at all. Since he did not say it, Yi Shiwen naturally would not ask too much. However, at this point, he felt that it was still necessary to ask. Yes, to be honest, it is here. During this period of time, I have actually been looking for the location of this battlefield outside, but I have not been able to find it. At that time, I calculated that the battlefield would appear soon, so I did not forcibly calculate its whereabouts. I did not expect it to appear at this time. Yemo nodded and said, "Doesn't that mean that those rumors are true? That there are emperors who have fallen here, and not just one?" Yi Shiwen's eyes lit up as he said, "Yes, that's why I interrupted your closed-door training, and let you come out. Your cultivation has now reached the intermediate stage of the quasi-emperor realm. I believe that even an ordinary quasi-emperor would not be a match for you. However, it will not be easy for you to go further and stand shoulder to shoulder with the Great Freedom Heavens and the others. Great Freedom Heavens' cultivation was not inferior to yours during the last war of resistance against the heavens. However, he has only grown to this point after so many years. You cannot compare with him in terms of time and foundation. However, it will be completely different if you can find something here," Yemo said. Yi Shiwen had woken up from his closed-door training. It was Yemo who had woken him up. Otherwise, he had planned to cultivate to the peak of the intermediate stage of the quasi-emperor realm in one go. In this chaotic world, the stronger he was, the stronger his ability to protect himself would be. Therefore, he had no choice but to cultivate diligently. As far as I know, several emperors have fallen here. I don't know the specific location of the place where the Devil King had fallen. However, I can roughly calculate it by relying on the connection between us. This can ensure that we can find the location of the Devil King's corpse earlier than the others. There will be great benefits waiting for you when the time comes. Do you think that the Devil King's treasure house is already very big? The wealth that the Devil King carried with him at that time is not something you can imagine. We must get those things. We must not let others get ahead of us," Yemo said in a serious manner. "It will not be difficult for you to go further when the time comes. Even the Great Freedom Heavens can't do anything to you. Then, you can plan to kill the rebellious emperor at that time. Everything will not be too late." Yi Shiwen's eyes lit up. If what Yemo said was true, then it would be enough to save him countless years of hard work. Otherwise, it would take a lot of time to achieve this step even if he had enough Emperor Source and mysterious space. "What the hell is so magical?" Yi Shiwen asked. Yemo was about to open his mouth to explain to Yi Shiwen. Suddenly, they had already walked into a sea of fire. In the distance, several figures directly surrounded them. Yi Shiwen glanced slightly and saw that these figures turned out to be powerful warriors. The entire aura of these powerful warriors had integrated with the void of this plane. It was just like the plane's child. These powerful warriors did not say a word and went forward to outflank Yi Shiwen and the others. How many years has it been? How many years has it been? I haven't seen a real living person. It's just the right time to capture them and make them our slaves." Among these figures, one of them said with a sinister smile. There was a bit of madness in his expression, and his eyes were constantly flashing fiercely. "Be careful, these are not dead spirit. They should be alive," Yi Qianqian reminded in a low voice. Because of the cultivation technique she practiced, she was also very sensitive to those dead spirits. If they were dead spirits, she was very clear about them and could perceive them immediately. "Could it be that all of you were left behind in this battlefield during the last war of resistance against the heavens?" Yi Shiwen seemed to have thought of something and suddenly asked. "Yes, we are the people who were left behind in this battlefield. How many years have passed? I can't even count it myself. No one came to save us at all," the figure slowly said. His voice was hoarse, but his expression was ferocious. "Now it's all right. We have integrated with this battlefield. It's time to go out. We want you to accompany us, ha 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 ha. His expression was a bit crazy. In order to survive in this battlefield for countless years, they had taken the initiative to integrate with the entire battlefield. Moreover, they were already here when the battlefield evolved into a world. If they were in an ordinary world, then they would be the ancient gods who had existed since the beginning of the world. They were too deeply involved with this battlefield world. They had adapted to the chaotic rules of the battlefield to survive. It would not be so easy to let them go out again. It seems that you don't intend to let us go? Yi Shiwen's expression turned cold. Originally, he still respected these people as brave warriors who fought against the heavens. Now it seemed that these people had gone completely crazy in the long semi-imprisonment life. They actually wanted to capture Yi Shiwen and the others as slaves to work for them. They also wanted Yi Shiwen and the others to feel the long loneliness. Yes, all those who break in must stay. Those who obey us can survive. Otherwise they will die. Now that the entire world is connected to the outside world, more and more people will come in. If you surrender early, you can still get a high position. You don't need to be the lowest slaves. The voice tempted Yi Shiwen to surrender and said, Yi Shiwen, don't talk nonsense with these lunatics. Just kill them all. Yi Mo shouted and directly rushed forward to kill. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.